All right, now we're live. All right, guys, I'm your host, formerly known as Wayne, now science enthusiast, and today we have a very good show for the people who watch. Um, Usually people watch this stuff like a day later, and so I'm like, "Where were you guys when I went live?" But anyway, we have a good show, good discussion, good conversation. If you guys don't know, on Monday I was on the Non Sequitur show with Steve McCrae, Kyle, and I was interacting with Hugo and Jake from the Bible Reloaded. And I will be on the Non Sequitur show again on September 21st. And oh, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, I'm scheduled to go live with the Three Black Heathens. So that'll be really, really fun. I hope people don't get me confused with like the other heathens because we're all black. So, I mean, people say we all look the same. I don't think that's true, but whatever. Uh, I am with my brother in Christ, Wayne, the other Wayne, not me. His name's Wayne too, and I am with Kenye. People usually like pronounce his name wrong. I don't know how it's spelled right. It's right there. It's right there. But I'm with Kenye.
Well, what's up, guys? What's up? I'm glad to be here.
Oh, we had people coming and watching. Good.
Cool,
So
cool.
actually, Kenye and I we met on Facebook maybe like what an hour ago.
Yeah, I would say probably about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, I make friends quick. Um, and oh, so Kenya sent me a friend request, and I'm like, hey, have we met before? And he's like, nah, man, I'm just friending all my black atheists. And I'm like, I'm not an atheist.
That was on me. That was on me. Because Alex had tagged you on Facebook.
Oh, okay. So no, so
Yeah,
tomorrow,
yeah.
I think I'll be the only person. I think I'll be the only black person in the room who's not an atheist tomorrow. So that'll be very, very different.
Mm.
Um,
Good luck.
yeah, hopefully they don't roast me. Um, so we had like a really good discussion on Facebook, and I said like I'm tired of like typing and crap. Let's just talk. And so he said yeah. And so I was about to do a Google Hangout anyway with Wayne, and so it worked out. And let me change my tab so I can actually see the chat if anybody wants to come in. Let me see. I don't think anybody will want to come on. We just started. I don't know if we got anybody here. My bad, guys. Hold on 1 minute. I do not know what happened to my live chat. Oh, it's right here. Okay, my live chat is right here. I don't see anybody who wants to come in yet. Let me wait for it to load. All right, I think we are good. I'm going to keep my eye on the live chat. I'm going to minimize my screen. All right, we should be cool. But we were talking about a lot of different stuff. And so one of the last things we were talking about was, well, let me just backtrack because before we were talking about that, we were talking about miracles and volcano eruptions in Egypt and stuff. I had said so I basically was talking about philosophies and um the what's in a genre. So I think when you're talking about religious texts, not even just the Bible, but let's just take like a step back. Let's telescope out and let's just talk about like genres specifically because I think this discussion is definitely something that is not had in the church or not. It's not had anywhere actually. At least in the normal world, because I know a lot of people are not scholars. They're not like a lot of people don't go to school for scholarly things. Like most people go to school for like gender studies and stuff. So you got
Well, I mean, I'm not a scholar and I'm not a scientist. So,
that's fine. Most people go to school for like gender studies or what else they go to school for, like uh stuff.
nursing.
Yeah, I nurses make good.
Yeah, they make great money. I'm not saying they don't make good money.
Yeah, yeah, but I got like people don't go to school for like uh Near Eastern studies, or like I know some people go to school for like archaeology, like those are the fields we actually need like more young people in, so like they can come back and be more like of a PR person for like education. We definitely need more people who are like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, what's the guy's name, Mikio Kaku. We need more people like that. Like I was saying before I even go into all of that, um, what's in a genre and like how do we properly interpret different things. So the best, I guess, analogy I could even give to jump into this discussion would be there was a doctor and there was a little girl. And the little girl, or I'm sorry, the doctor says to the little girl, "We know how your little brother was made. Your little brother was made through embryology." And the little girl says to the doctor, "That's not true. God made my little brother." And so the doctor, he's given the embryological approach to the processes of how it was created or developed. And the little girl says, "No, that's not true because God made my little brother." Who's right? Is the doctor right or is the little girl right?
Are you actually asking me that as a question?
Oh, it was kind of rhetorical, but I mean, you can answer it if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's rhetorical, then I choose not to say anything.
So actually, they both right at the same time, and so they're both attempting to separately different questions. They're answering two different realms. One is a scientific explanation, but the other explanation is a philosophical or theological explanation as to that's not even talking about origins. That's talking about development. Embryology has nothing to do with origins and everything to do with development. And so they both are correct. And so when you think of things like the Bible or even Greek mythology, mythos, because the Bible is a mythos, not meaning that it isn't true, but a myth would be defined as any story or any book or any event that has a supernatural or divine element or entity or person in it. So, thanks, Nadatheus. I'll read your comment in a minute. So, being as all types of Greek mythology or anything along those lines, they have supernatural thread within them. Does that mean the story isn't true? It depends on what you mean by true. Some people would say because these events have some type of gods involved in them, that means the story is incorrect. On the contrary, a story could have some type of supernatural element and it could actually still be historical. As a matter of fact, most historians would list some I guess you could say events and certain like local myths to be true. A really good example of this would be the different flood accounts around the world. Now, I'm going to use this in a very different way. A lot of creationists say that there are a lot of different accounts of floods around the world, worldwide floods, global floods around the world. And these floods are evidence of a global cataclysm or global catastrophe or what do you call it? Doge or flood. I would say no. I would say that's not true. Is that there really was a real flood at one point in history. It wasn't global, it was local. But the problem was when you deal with, of course, ancient Near Eastern people, they thought the entire world was flooded because that local land was all they knew. And so it would make sense for many of these different cultures to come up with their own flood narrative to explain what happened. Does it mean the event never occurred? A scientific aspect of it incorrectly? Of course, we know the entire planet was not submerged in water, but there really was a point in history. Some people say around 4,000 years ago, where there was a local deluge. and there was a real flood in the Mediterranean area. And so that historical aspect of the story, yes, that is true. Was it a global flood? No. Caused the flood? That's a different question. That's not even a scientific question. That's more of a philosophical question. Was God the cause of the flood? Some people can say they don't know. Some people can say they believe it. But just because there's a supernatural element to the story or some scientific consistencies are incorrect, we shouldn't do away with the entire account because there are some, I would say, inconsistencies in the account. Actually, if it's a real historical perspective, but that to say that when you look at the Bible, and I was talking about you with the book of Deuteronomy, where there's an account where all these miracles start happening in the book of Deuteronomy. All these plagues start happening. There's flying flies around, and what? Of course, flies fly because they're flies. There's flies coming around out of nowhere, and there's frogs going around like from out of nowhere because reasons. And then there's darkness on the land. I was on the Non Sequitur show, and I actually gave this piece of evidence. And now we actually know why, or at least we know how there could be darkness on this land for a couple of days. There was a volcano across from Egypt. It's called Mount Thera. I actually, on the Non Sequitur show, I actually mispronounced it. It's not. It,
Not sure if you can hear me, but it got frozen on my screen. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, bro, I'm here, bro.
Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool. Well, I guess he got shut down or something.
Yeah, he'll be back on.
Oh, all right, cool, cool.
you guys still there?
All right, you back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just cut out, and I had no idea. But how much
Oh,
of that do
okay.
you guys?
What happened?
I thought you had went to sleep. I was like, did he go to sleep?
Nah, man. Nah, not yet, not yet.
I was
I,
wondering. Oh
I
gosh.
had thought your screen got frozen and you logged off.
Oh man, no, I don't know. Like maybe it's my internet connection. I mean, we got files, so it shouldn't be bad. But whatever. But yes, I don't know how much of that you heard, but yeah, you can like. I don't know if you were talking or what. I don't know.
Well, I heard up to the point where you were getting ready to use your examples of where the floods took place and everything like that. But then as soon as you got,
I was talking for a minute. Wow.
yeah, man. So when you were talking, it had actually froze, and I was like, yo, I don't know if y'all can hear me, but you're frozen. So I got stuck over there.
Wayne, are you still here? Like Wayne, where are you at in this? Like you just like invisible.
Are you asking me or Wayne?
No, Wayne, it's the other Wayne.
Oh,
Wayne,
all
right now
right.
you are as
What's up,
invisible as
guys?
God. What you say? What
I
you
said
say?
stop talking about me.
Wayne, you're as invisible as Jesus right now.
Wayne, speak. Where'd he go? He left. Or I don't know.
No, I think he just
So
said, "Don't speak about him."
but why? He just. It's weird for you to just watch us talk.
All right. So, yeah, what were you saying about the flood, though?
Oh, so everything in the flood was not scientifically correct. Of course, because it lived like what, like 4,000 years ago. So you shouldn't expect for their science to be correct because I don't like you wouldn't expect for them to be scientifically correct. And just because people are like, all right, we're going to add God into the details, it still doesn't mean their science is going to be correct. So anyway, all of that to say, there was a world flood. It didn't destroy the entire world. Like, of course we know that, duh. But we get what they were trying to convey. All of these different cultures, they all have this account of this same event happening. And why do you think these people have this account of the same event? They're not making it up. It really did happen, but the scientific details of it are probably incorrect. The little minute fine details are probably incorrect, but the bigger picture of it is there was a flood and it caused a lot of chaos and a lot of people died. Boom. So maybe those elements of the story, but the other elements, as far as like the bigger picture of it, sure. And so all of that to say, in the Deuteronomy account, they're attributing these aspects, as far as the miracles and stuff like that. They're saying, oh, it was this crazy miracle where God was the reason behind these events. Now, it used to be argued that the plagues are unscientific, or the plagues are unscientific, right? Like the volcano, people argue that. Now, as time has gone on, and we're actually like finding out more, scientific explanations as to why, or as to how these things happen, I would say you're still left with the philosophical why question as to, okay, what was the reason behind these innumerable events happening one after another after another. So I would say I would attribute these aspects to God. And so that would be, I guess, I'll shut up now and I'll just let you talk. I've been talking I'm sorry.
Well, first and foremost, I just wanted to go ahead and just say, I feel the question of why can turn into a very big issue of understanding. So it's like there can be a never-ending question of whys, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So say, for example, you say, or rather, we figure out it was God. Then you can just go, why was it God? You get what I'm saying? Why would God do that? And then you would just continue with the whys. The whys never end. And it's like an infinite regression of whys. You could just go, why? Well, then God did this because of this. Well, why did he do that because of that? And then why would he feel that was the only way to do it? Why would this be the only way to do it? Why this? Why that? So we could keep going forever with whys. And so I could find the issue with whys is infinite regression, with whys. Just the answer of why is more of what and how. You know what I mean? What caused the volcano to erupt? How do we know? So with the what and the how, we get to discover what is actually happening. Or, for example, now it turns into, for like with the whole God thing, right? It turns into, well, then why does God exist? Because if we all need a purpose, then certainly God must need a purpose. Why does he exist? And then you're gonna go, and I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying generally, you go, oh, well, God can't have a creator. Well, then why? You know what I'm saying? How about we discover first what about God? What did God do? How did God do it? So we discover what and how. We don't really need to know what the why is. The why can lead into a whole never-ending amount of just why. You just go why the whole time. You know what I mean? And so then none of these will come down to a clear answer from my perspective of things.
You're correct. I would agree with you. But where I would disagree with you is just, it is troublesome to ask those type of questions. I would say it's also intellectually lazy, and it's just not fun to ask those type of questions. I mean, that's why we do science, so we can find out the how, and then we can philosophize on the why. And so I think in taking away from the why question, you are actually doing us a disservice when it comes to our philosophical curiosities. But that's why we do science, because we're curious. We want to find out these things. And so I think with the the default position of atheism, I think that, and because we both agree, atheism doesn't attempt questions, but I will also say that philosophically, it can't.
I mean, I'm trying to understand that, and I guess you're right at the same time, because the whole thing is, like I had like when we had talked before, atheism really doesn't have a setup for somebody to feel, okay, well, this is why. You get what I'm saying? Like I said before, the only definition of atheism is to not have a belief in any or other gods. You know what I'm saying? So we atheists are not in a position to go, well, I know why. This is something based on science or based on geology. You know what I'm saying? Based on those type of deals. It's not that atheism is in fact included in these things, because you don't have to be an atheist to believe in evolution, aka we have you, my brother. You don't need to be an atheist to believe in, or rather to accept scientific facts.
Yeah, I would say accept. Don't say believe. Say accept.
Right. To accept scientific facts. You know what I'm saying? We don't need atheism for those things. We don't need atheism for those things. However, independently as an atheist, sure, we will have our own beliefs within our own spectrums on certain topics. But my whole thing is, we do not, and I agree with you, atheism cannot answer it, because atheism has nothing to do with those things. You get me? Atheism is in no way. I mean, there are some atheists who are like, oh, well, I have all the answers, and that's just not correct. You know what I mean? We cannot make claims.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, if that's the case, if they have all the answers, I just want to ask them, when are they going to publish their paper?
I agree. I mean, and there's no way that I, as an individual atheist, am going to say, well, I have all the answers, because I don't. And I'm being honest here, and even though it does us, or if you feel it does us a disservice, once again, it never comes down to a final answer, or rather just one set answer, because you can continue asking why, is what I'm saying. But if we discover what and how, we then have the answer of actual, well, not certain, not 100% certainty, but at least 85% certainty. And I'm more comfortable with that. If it's 85% certainty, with the odds being, well, either I don't know at all, or I'm this close to knowing, I'd rather be this close to knowing.
Well, we are agreeing, and also at the same time, there is this distinct difference. So I would with the, and so not even just with God, but philosophical musings in general. So like when I was talking about the cosmological origins of existence, when you go beyond the science, where you have to philosophize, you have to give an idea on what possibly could have cause the existence of reality in our universe. It doesn't have to be God, but it just so happens, I would argue, it would just so happen to be that God is the best explanation. It doesn't have to be God, but God is. That's just what you're left with, at least in my point of view. And so I would say, definitely don't leave philosophy off the table, but also don't run away from it when it doesn't go in your favor.
I do agree with that. You should never run away from a philosophical conversation about these things. But at the same time, I do not feel if we do not know, then the only honest answer is to say, I don't know. For example, when you were asking me questions about space time, what came before the Big Bang and stuff like that, I was honest here. I do not know because I am not a scientist. I am not a biologist. You know what I mean? I am just a man trying to keep up with the science. I do not know. And I am okay with that. And I am okay with that. Like, it's sort of in the sense of, if I'm being completely honest, like you could say that it's a God. You can say that because you feel that way. But if you make the claim, well, then it is God, then is when you have to prove it. You understand what I'm saying? It's like there's a difference between claim making and beliefs, because we cannot just go to, oh, well, I don't know, therefore God. It's like going, I don't know, therefore ponies. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, it's intellectually dishonest and kind of a disservice.
Well, not intellectually dishonest. Well, with the whole the God of the Gaps argument, that's old. Isn't that like 2008 or something? But so those arguments are like played out. But what I will say is, I wouldn't say because we don't know, therefore God. I would say that it would seem to be that God would be the most plausible or the most rational explanation as to why this event occurred. And so what I would say is the God model is an explanation for things that are a completely different set of questions that are not scientific. But just because it's not scientific, it doesn't mean it's not true, and it doesn't mean it's any less important, because there's different realms of philosophy we use every day. And as a matter of fact, science uses philosophy. There's a philosophy of science. And I know you're not arguing against this. So to further my point, I guess I would conclude and I would say that what actually was I about to say? You were saying, what were you saying one last time? My memory is shot. You were saying that the whys and the this and the okay. So wait. Yeah, you were saying that the so okay. The no's and the know-hows and stuff like that. Okay. So my memory is horrible. So when it comes to the knowings and the hows and all that stuff, no. Nobody can know if God exists unless it's in some type of like three-dimensional geometric form. So like I said before, the concept of God is an abstract concept. It's not concrete, meaning like a rock would be concrete. It has dimensions, it has depth, it has width, it has height. It's a geometrical object. But with God, it is a abstract philosophical idea. And those are a lot harder to, I wouldn't say prove, but they are a lot harder to showcase. And when it comes to when it comes to everything, we can always doubt. So I think what you're implying is that once we get down that road of philosophical whys to the God question, you will always have room to doubt. And I will agree, yes, you will. But then the philosophical reasoning comes into play where, okay, you always will have room to doubt. But if you do have substantial evidence, why would you? So, for example, I could give you sufficient evidence right now that I myself, I certainly do exist. And there's always an error bar for there being doubt, for there being something not being the case. You could always say, well, I don't think you really do exist. I think right now that there's a very complicated computer hologram system that is imitating your existence. By mathematical necessity, we would have to accept that by at least 1% out of whatever percent, or out of whatever many different probabilities. We would have to accept that. But at the same time, if we have sufficient evidence of my existence, it wouldn't make sense for me to doubt that I do exist. And so I would say you always do have room for doubt, but if we have enough evidence, we should definitely go with reason opposed to doubt.
First, let me just say I absolutely agree, and it kind of reminds me of what Matt Dillahunty had once said about doubting someone's existence. If I am not actually here, I refuse to believe that I'm not here, or if I'm in a matrix, rather, someone will have to show me a way out, or I have to go with the world I experience. And the whole thing is, I don't think that you were doing the God of the gaps, but you were close to it. Because sure, it could be seen as a good answer for you as an individual person. It seems like a good answer for you based on how you feel. And what you feel is correct, or what you feel is most likely correct. But that does not mean it is correct. Now, the whole thing about the evidence of God, what many people are looking for, some people don't even know what they're looking for when it comes to evidence, because it's hard to say what definitive evidence would you have to prove that a God is real. You know what I'm saying? It's very hard to have that definitive evidence. Like, you can't go, well, here's the evidence of God right here in my hand that I have for you. You know what I'm saying? So,
I agree.
Sure. What happened?
I say I agree with you. You're right. It's very hard to explain God.
Right, exactly. So,
where were you at for 30 minutes? Like,
oh my goodness, man, that's awesome. But in the sense of,
I'm a great listener. I was listening.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate your listening skills. You're a very great listener. But at the same time, it's like, is it then, I guess, reasonable to go, well, I do feel that this answer is most likely correct, but we do not know if it is correct. Then we cannot actually go, it's correct by all standards. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to just jump onto, I guess, the God sphere, if you will, or the God hypothesis of things. Just like, for example, with the people who are not satisfied with the fact that evolution has some missing gaps. And even though we're closing those gaps, they're saying, well, that missing gap is because of God. You know what I mean? So if we cannot be able to, I guess, jump right down to it on how do we know it's God? Do we actually know it's God? Do we have evidence of it actually being God? You know what I'm saying? So it's not a matter of, me, I speak for me, and I hope I speak for other atheists when I say this. It's not the matter of saying we don't want it to be a God. It's rather a matter of saying, where's the evidence that it is God? You get what I'm saying? So I have not seen well-produced evidence from any theological person who said, oh, well, you know what? I feel this is true because I have evidence. A lot of people, and, no offense to you, even you, said you believe it on faith. And what is the definition of faith? When we look at the Bible, we know in Hebrews 11, it's the substance of things not seen. But is it really though? How can you have evidence of something not seen or something? You know what I'm saying? You can't have evidence of something that's not in some way, physical shape and or form, sensible with the five senses that we possess.
Can you see? Can you see the space?
Can I see space
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah.
Well, right now, no, I cannot see space.
Right, but you believe it's there, right?
I don't believe it's there. No, I in fact accept that it's there because I have seen when I just look up, look up. You know, when I'm
All
outside.
right. So what about your brain? You can never seen your brain before,
Well,
but you know it's there.
I would hate to do this, and I don't want to make anybody feel upset or like pitying me, right? My whole thing is I have multiple sclerosis, so I in fact know I have a brain. So I have gotten a brain scan to show that my brain is actually there. You know what I'm saying? We have ways of showing that it's actually there.
It's some things
And
you never see, but you never seen before, but you believe it's there. You believe it.
so I don't believe it's
Oh,
there.
I
No.
All right. It's things that you seen that you never seen before, but you believe.
Like, could you give an example?
All right, like Martin Luther King situation.
Like Martin Luther
You
King
never
situation?
seen Martin Luther King in your day of your life.
Right.
You never even like no matter of fact, not Martin Luther King. Let me say, like you know how all the old people and like the old people that we heard that was this that was doing this, like Harriet Tubman. We was not there around that time, but we believe that they did what they did. You know what I'm saying? Like, but none of us seen them or never seen what they did, but we believe that Harriet Tubman was real.
I mean, but do we believe it though? It's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
separate because
We
we
believe it.
have
We
the
believe it because it's history and because that's what they tell us. But at the end of the day, none of us was there to even witness that these people were existed.
who is they?
Like these like Harriet Tubman and everybody like I said a lot of people do that. They go off of faith, off of things that we that never seen before, but we believe that that these things happen. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of examples I was trying to bring up, but they're not popping up right now. But it's a lot of examples I could bring up with things that we never seen before. But we have faith to believe. Just like with work, you wake up in the morning, you have faith to believe that you're gonna wake up every day. You have faith that you're gonna get to work safe and sound. You have faith you're gonna get home safe and sound. You have faith that you're gonna literally, what I mean, that everything's gonna literally be okay when you go home. And literally gonna be. You have faith for that. That's things you can't see and you don't know what's gonna happen, but you have faith to know that all right, I'm gonna, what I mean, I'll get up, go to work, but you have faith to think that you're gonna get to work on, what I mean, safe and sound. Things you can't see. I could give a lot of examples about faith, you know what I mean? But that's because they say that faith is the substance of things not seen and the essence of things you hope for. Um, is basically talking about how you believe the things that you can't see. You believe you believe you're gonna see another day, but you never seen tomorrow yet because tomorrow ain't get here yet. But you believe you will. You know what I mean? Just like it took so many greats like Michael Jordan and all these other people to believe that even though they missed like Michael Jordan missed so many shots, it took him to believe beyond his imagination. To look at his situation and to have faith to look beyond and say, you know what, I'm gonna not, I'm gonna train harder to be better. I mean, I missed all these shots, but right now I don't see me being good. But I gotta look beyond that, and I gotta see that I could be the greatest player. You know what I'm saying? Because he had people could, test him. You know what I mean? To be a very competitive basketball player. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I'm just trying to use an example of how you talked about faith. Faith, essence of things hoped for. When the Bible was talking about faith, it was God was trying to basically teach them that, I want you to believe me for what I say, not just believe that, not just say, I got to see it to believe it. Because if you just got to see it to believe it, and then again, and the Bible says, if you got to see it to believe it, then you don't really believe it. because you know that's not really belief into God. You know what I mean? God is saying, "Believe me because I said it." You know what I mean? It's nothing like just like me saying, "Yo, I got $100." You know what I mean? And you believe me. You know, instead of me showing you. You know what I mean? That's like, you know, it's like I'm saying, I'm trying to get great examples, but I may not be doing a good job at it. But I'm trying to get some good examples.
No, so yeah, what does it even really have like these types of exchanges? So I'm just listening to them because you getting practice.
Can I respond real quick to that? All right. So I mean, I guess I understand your example, but in my response to that, it's more of a little bit of a false equivalency, and that could fall into, for example, if you tell me you have $100, right? I don't need to take on faith that you have $100, and that's only because I don't need to worry about if you actually have $100 on you. But if you,
that's why I said I'm sorry about that example. That was a bad example. I was trying to get some good examples, but you know
no,
what
no,
I'm trying to say. It's
no,
like
I understand what you
it's
understand. I understand.
because we do it with the doctors. You know what I mean? Like we have faith to believe what the doctors say. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't even know like what the, like we just go to the doctors
But
and we
don't
automatically have
doctors
faith
do?
and believe what they
Don't
say.
doctors
They'll say
do
we got
like?
cancer and we
Don't
automatically believe it.
doctors?
Like, oh my God, we believe it
Don't
automatically.
doctors do observations on us though?
But
You know
don't
what I'm saying?
but
They
are
do
they but are they
observations.
100
They do
but are they
study on
100
us to show us.
but are they 100% right all the time?
Are they 100%
Are they
right?
100% right? They not 100% right. A lot of times faith had proven them wrong all the time. Like when people say, you know, oh, the doctor said I had cancer, but when I prayed and I did this and this and that and that and that and that, and next thing you know, I don't my cancer has been cleared. Make doctors look stupid because they automatically tell you,
Or
they'll tell you all these other things like, you know, you got this, you got
or
that, you know what I mean? And
or
a
you
lot of times
never
they are wrong. A lot of times they have been proven
or
to be wrong.
or you
Yes.
never had cancer to begin with. But so you know how I feel
Yeah,
about when
but
you argue with
you know how
doctors, but you know how I feel.
you know how they be like, you got 90 days to live, and next thing you know, you wind up living for a long period of time. That's what
Because
I'm
you
talking
probably
about.
never had cancer.
No, I was using cancer as an example, but I'm just saying because I heard so many testimonies of people that said the doctor said this and doctor said that, and it's been proven to be wrong. You know what I mean? So, but
Maybe.
a lot of people put their faith in the doctors, and they think that they not going, that they dictate your life. No, you dictate. You know what I mean? You have power in your words. You have power, and it's faith is power. It's power in faith. Believing things beyond what you see. And like just because the doctor say I got cancer don't mean that I can't get healed of it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that, because if it's all about, your mindset, the power of your mind and your thoughts. You can change that situation. That's somebody that I know that witness that lives right around the corner from me. You know what I mean? That had cancer. But he didn't let that get to him. He didn't stress out. He didn't worry about it. He said, look, I just had to be one of those chosen people that had to have cancer. But I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and he did what he had to do, and he got healed from it. You know what I'm saying? Like he literally got healed from it. Now his hair is growing back. You know what I'm saying? Like he's doing good. He was just like, look, man, he had faith to say, you know what, I'm not gonna complain, Lord. You just choose me, and hey, I'm going to basically step out and faith and be encouraged. He didn't let that stop him from because he got a car washing business. And he didn't let that stop him from washing those
Oh, you
cars.
told me about this guy. You told me about him.
Yeah, that testimony touched me so much because it was like, yo, I seen him literally out there. And he said, yeah, man, he got tired sometimes, and it was cold many nights. He had to wash those cars, but he
No,
did
wait,
it
wait, wait.
anyway.
What happened to his cancer? Did he get treatment for it?
Say what?
Did he get treatment for his cancer?
I think it was, yeah. Everybody that got cancer got to get treatments and all that stuff. You know,
No, because the
long
way you
story
were putting
short,
it,
it was just like the long story short, because I don't, he told me a lot, but I don't remember all of it. But I do remember the fact that when he told me he put it on Facebook or Instagram that he don't have cancer anymore. That I said, oh my God, that's so awesome. Thank God for answering his prayers. You know what I mean? Because, you know, like I said, you know, he's like, look, when people come to him, people could put the stress on you as far as making you trying to think about it as a bad thing. But it's a thought. It's a thought thing. You know what I mean? Because it's something you can't control. If you got cancer, you can't. Sometimes you can't control the fact that you were chosen to have cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like Wayne used to say that it's not in the food, it don't come from the food or whatever. Like me, I don't know where. You know, sometimes like you don't know where it comes from. It could just come out of, you know, nowhere, and you just have it. You know what I'm saying? But it's about having that faith to think that, you know, because even though this situation, the faith way I look at faith is like, even though the situation is bad, I believe that better is gonna come. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't, you know what I mean? I don't have to, you know, just because the situation look bad, I gotta be all panicking and going crazy, or I'm not. Oh man, I'm never gonna get out of debt. You know what I'm saying? That's what I look at faith. Faith is like, look, saying, you know what, one day I'll get out of debt. Just like me and Wayne talking about. Wayne had faith to believe before he had that job. Wayne had faith to say, you know what, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this. He spoke it into existence. That's what faith, faith without substance. That's what faith means. You know, when you can't see it, but you speak it into existence already. Wayne spoke having that job before he ever got it. He spoke it into existence. Wayne spoke getting his permit before he got it. He got it because he spoke it. You know what I'm saying? He had faith to believe it, and then that's why I say you believe it, you will receive it. And he believed it first, and then he received that he received his permit.
Yeah, but I didn't just
Received his
believe it.
job.
I didn't just believe. I actually did stuff. Like
Right, but that's
I
what
didn't
faith.
believe. I did stuff.
But that's what we know. That's action, though. You put your faith to action. You know what I'm saying? You didn't just say, "Oh, well, I hope I'm gonna get a job," or "I hope I'm gonna," you know. No, you believed, and also you put action behind it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, like I said, you know, there's so many examples that I can give.
But I think
I'm just speaking from my personal experiences where it definitely is real. It definitely is real. It definitely worked in my life. A lot of times I had to really, you know, that's it. Every day we have faith. We don't know what's going to happen, but we have faith that, you know, that God going to, well, in my opinion, God going to protect me. God going to, you know, make sure, you know, because He has. You know, it's been situations where shots been falling, and I mean, it's been situations where I've been in dangerous situations, but you know, nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? You know, but I like when my brother can I'm sorry, man, go ahead. But I like when
No,
my man
I was saying, why do you have us staring up your nose? Like we are like getting all like we all up in the book.
Don't worry about that, my man. Don't worry about all that.
That's awesome.
I don't like cameras. I really don't. I think I told you that before. I really don't like cameras. I don't like pictures. I really hated those things growing up, bro. Like I don't got that kind of face, that camera face, bro. I don't really got that face that's for the camera. I really don't. Man. I really don't like them Jones, bro. I don't like you looking at my face. Like, nah, man. Like, yo. But that's why I was gonna put the John on. Like I'm just go ahead and do that. The camera on, because I don't even like that.
Because you hit up your nose.
Go ahead, Ken. You
had to stand right up the nose, like right up the crack, like.
Well, and you know, that's a very powerful story. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I've heard stories like that tons of times as well. But once again, and I'm not trying to offend you. I guess he's second Wayne. We'll call you Cool Wayne. We'll call you Cool Wayne, right? So Cool Wayne. It's like people say that it was faith because they don't know. And my whole thing is, you said something very very powerful and or contradictory a little bit. You had said that he prayed to God and he took his medication and he took the proper items that he needed to in order to get better. Now, we do not know, right? we can't say if it was God or not. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't God, but I am going to say that we do not know if it was God. We can't go, well, he prayed, therefore it must have came true if he was taking medication the whole time. Half the time, people with these stories have been taking their medication, have been keeping up with their proper ways to get better, and praying at the same time. There's no way we can go ahead and definitively say, well, you know what? This was God. This is God. We don't have a definitive understanding of how we can say that. And I wanted to go ahead and say, because you brought up prayer, was that there was a study done on people that were getting their medication done in a hospital. I'm not too sure on the hospital's name, but you can just look the study up. And the study was half the people that were getting prayed for have died, and they were taking no medications. However, there was a significant difference. The people that were getting prayed for, they were in itself happier, but that was all they were. They were happier, but they were still dying. You get what I'm saying? So now this is not me saying that science therefore is always correct or it is correct all the time. But my thing is, if we can use science to make ourselves feel better, and we can even do a study where there are people being prayed for and other people getting better, and with the statistics on the side of people taking their medication and whatnot, more than half of those people actually lived. And this was actually based on, if I'm correct, this is based on cancer. So we cannot just go ahead and jump into it and go, well, this person prayed a whole bunch of times, and now we know that it was God. Well, how do we know it was God? We can't just jump to that. We have studies based on these things. It made them feel better. Sure, it gave them the proper euphoria, but some of them still died. And I see faith, and that definition that you gave, it sounds more of a level of confidence than it is actually the definition of faith, because the actual dictionary definition is to believe something without evidence. You don't have evidence on that. You know, and like you said, how do I know I'm going to wake up tomorrow? Being honest, I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I don't know, but I don't tackle that on the same faith as, and this is where I said the false equivalency came in. It is not me going, well, then I woke up the next day. Yeah, therefore there must be a God. That faith is irrelevant. And that is not the same faith level. It is something that I have confidence in because it happened before. And I can have confidence in saying, well, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to wake up. I can have confidence in that because it's happened before. And if I do not have the confidence, that's okay. You know, some people don't have confidence that they could wake up. Some people need that belief. And all it does for them is carry a very high level of euphoria of saying, well, this makes me feel good. This is something that's precious to me. It makes me feel happy. And that's okay to feel happy. But my whole thing is we cannot identify if it was actually God or not. You know what I'm saying? We cannot identify, okay, well, this must have been God, you know, because this person had faith the whole time. Now, if it got this real, right? So we can go, all right, listen, you have a choice. You have a choice now. You can take it all on faith and hope you'll be okay, or take no medications at all. And if you can do that and you are okay, it's like me going, for example, because I really don't want to piss off believers, but I know I'm gonna piss them off with this statement.
No, I already pissed them off, so you're cool.
No, man, I think this is gonna piss them off even more. If you believe in God and you believe God heals everything, and you really truly believe it, you have it in your heart, and you really feel it in you, then don't go to a doctor. Don't go to a doctor. Let's see your results. I promise the results may not be okay. And by that point, I say, yo, go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Make sure you're okay. But I would love to see anybody that believes in God go, you know what? I'm not going to take my medications. I'm going to record myself not taking medications, not going to a doctor, whatever the illness is, I'll just pray about it. And then I want to see that actually work, because that is kind
But
of
that's
that
how
kind
I
of
am.
shows you're afraid.
I don't
That kind
go
of shows you're
like that's
afraid, because and that kind of shows you don't have all the faith. No offense,
well
you know what I mean? It's like you
that's how
jump
I am.
into
I
it
don't
or you
go.
don't.
I tell Wayne I don't go to doctors. I'll be like, no,
Yeah,
I deal with it. If I deal with it, I got to deal with it. Wayne will tell you, I don't go to doctors, man,
that's
because I
how.
don't believe in that. Like, I believe that you can, if you got a problem with yourself, you can find your own healing. You don't need to go to doctors. At the end of the day, the hospital, they don't even help you with your problems. A lot of times, they just tell you to go to go to they prescribe you to a medicine anyway. You know what I'm saying? They don't even help you with their problems. Like a lot of times I say I got an issue, I got a problem. They prescribe you with a medicine and then send you home. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like that. I could have did that myself. You know what I'm saying? I could went to the Walgreens or whatever and got some medicine to help myself. Like you gonna just tell me like that's they only good for emergencies. Like that's what the hospital is good for. Only when you an emergency where when you got shot, you got shot or something, or you got you know what I'm saying like you like a major big emergency. That's what they
Well, I
good for.
mean,
They're not good
we're
for just if you got like if you broke your if you broke your hand or something and
let's,
or
let's
no
not
let's say if you
let's
got
not
no I ain't gonna say if you
let's
broke your hand
not
but if you got like
let's not
you got
bash
flu
medicine.
or something
Let's not
they
bash
not good
medicine.
for like you got flu.
Please,
They not good for
please.
that kind of stuff. Like you go to the store and get medicine for flu, and that will help
You're
you
not
way more
arguing.
than
You're not
going to the
arguing
hospital.
God. You're bashing medicine at this point. You are You like
No, I'm not bashing medicine. I'm
you
speaking the truth.
are.
I have been in a
This
situation
has
where I
nothing to
went to the
do with the
hospital.
cure.
I went to the hospital. They told me the same thing that like I could have did myself. Or they told
Because
me,
your
oh yeah,
doctor
just
is
go to
stupid.
Walgreens
Your
and
doctor is
you
stupid.
can take an aspirin or you could take a Cedric. I'm like, what? I'm like, dang. So
Wayne,
I
it's
came all up
your
here
doctor.
for a visit just for them to tell me that. I'm like,
Wayne, your
Dad, like
doctor.
I ain't have to
Your doctor.
spend money to do this thing.
I think you need a new doctor.
Your doctor
Nah,
too.
it wasn't a doc. It wasn't like I ain't went to a doctor. I went to a hospital. I'm talking about like an actual, like the ER, like not the ER, but the
Oh,
actual pen medicine and the hub. I work at a hospital, but I didn't go to that one. I went to because when I work as a rehab, but they don't do the like the emergencies, whatever. One time I had an emergency where I said like I felt like I fainted and all that stuff. Like I think I had no, I think I had high blood pressure or something and all they did was prescribe me to a medicine or something. You know what I mean? Like I said, I didn't have to go. I only
so
went because CNA told me to go because she was like, I don't want you having a stroke or a heart attack or something and not knowing it. I said, all right, cool. So I went. And I mean, but all they did was prescribe me some medicine, some blood pressure medicine, and
yeah,
say,
and
"Hey, take this blood
their
pressure
blood
medicine." Or,
pressure, their blood
but I
pressure.
could have found that on my own. I could have, you know what I'm saying? Like,
You couldn't.
it's so much technology that
You couldn't have
can
done it on your
tell
own
you and
because
show you. Like I looked on YouTube. Like when I had the flu, I
oh
looked on
God,
YouTube how to
Wayne,
get healed.
Wayne,
Look. Listen to me real quick.
no,
Listen to me
no.
real quick. Listen to me, please, real quick.
Okay.
When I had the flu, I looked on YouTube or how ways that I can get healed from the flu or how people got healed. Their interpretation of how they got healed from the flu. So I used those products. I had went to the Walgreens and I had went and bought some products for my flu. Guess what? It knocked my flu out. You know what I'm saying? I ain't had to go to the hospital for to find get the flu and have a doctor tell me, oh, this is what you should do. At the end of the day, I found it out on my own and I healed myself without their permission. At the end of the day, they probably would have did the same thing. Now I'm not saying it's
Yeah, but
bad or nothing
so
bad. I'm just
so you
saying
got
at the end of we don't need them. We choose to have them and we choose to go to doctors because they know this, they know that. And like I said, that's fine. You should have a doctor. Yes, true. I'm not saying that, but I know how many times have I have healed my own self without going to a doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times we just, like I said, I'm a firm believer that of doc, yeah, doctors they do their job, this and that too, but not all the time that you can heal yourself on certain things. Yeah, like I said, I would go to the hospital if it was an emergency, like if I felt my heart pounding or something like that, and something really sick. But even in that, like I said, you could look up certain stuff Wayne does it all the time. We look at all kinds of things on YouTube or on internet. Internet, you got so many things that can help us. That
Yeah,
like
but
my man, coworker.
you
But go ahead.
still need a doctor to actually do an exam on you so they can run certain tests, and the test will come back and it will confirm whether you have a certain disease or not. You still need to be diagnosed. That's why you go to a doctor. You go to a doctor so you can be properly diagnosed, and they are trained in certain fields so they can properly treat you. And you do not have the power to go out and heal yourself, because you can only get certain medications that are not over the counter by a doctor who can they have to write a prescription for you. So you cannot heal yourself. You cannot save yourself.
It depends. That's false. You can heal yourself. You don't need no.
Well,
In that
hey,
case, you can heal yourself. Are you gonna tell me I did it already? I don't. You don't need to depend on doctors for everything.
well, I would
Like I
love
said,
to work.
it depends. I think it depends. It depends on the situation. Like I said, for flu, you ain't need a doctors for that because you just go flu medicine. It's flu medicine. It's things that can help you. Well, and that can help you. Besides that, like it's a lot of people that tell you what helped them, and you could take that advice if you want. Like I said, it depends. For me, I ain't want to go to the doctors. I said, you know what? I'm going to Walgreens to see what I can use to help me. And I had somebody prescribe me to
Yeah,
a
but
certain kind of medicine, and it
so
helped. But like I
why,
said,
why
it
wait,
depends, man. You don't.
you have
But
a oh, I'm done. We're not going medical bash and like, okay. So we were talking about faith. We were talking about faith. So there are two types of faith. There's not just, and also I did look up, I googled faith real quick, and one of the definitions for faith that came up for me is faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or
you
something.
breaking up, bro. You breaking up.
You hear me now? Hello? Y'all hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. So one of the definitions of faith is complete trust
You
or
breaking up.
confidence. How?
I can hear you now. I can
Yo,
hear you now. I can hear you
it's
now.
because you got Metro. Gosh.
I don't got Metro. The devil is a liar. I don't got no Metro.
Well, I don't. Who's your internet provider? Your phone provider? Your stuff is all the way messed up.
It is not me, bro. It's y'all service, not me.
No,
Not my
because
service.
Kenya just said open
I got
fine.
the
So like,
top notch.
no,
I got the top notch of Verizon. You
no,
can't talk about
you
my
got
service.
bootleg internet.
Nah,
Bootleg.
Verizon is the best service out there. So don't can't talk about my service.
If it's correct,
Hey, my man, let me tell you something. Your doggone crony behind Android service is trash. Okay,
I
I'm talking
have
about.
files.
I got iPhone. I got a high tech iPhone 8 Plus, and I got the best service there is. Verizon, bruh. So stop talking about my service.
You gonna sit here.
You gonna stop talking about doggone throwing shots at me. Stop it.
You gonna sit here. You gonna sit here before me and
Hey,
God.
Kanye.
You gonna sit here before me and God.
Hey, Kanye. Yo, get him, yo. Get him about my shit. Talk about. He got that beat up old Android, and he want to talk about my doggone service. I got the Tide Tech iPhone, boy. Get out of here. I'm tired of you talking about me. Stop it. Stop it.
Okay.
Now.
So like
you
I was saying,
be a scientist over here coming at a Christian. Cut it out.
I'm telling Pastor. Watch me go to church. I'm telling Pastor.
No, I'm telling you,
Christ crime.
So I would say
his science teacher.
Look, you hear him? You hear him? He's breaking up. It's not me. He's breaking up. See, I told you. Lie. Sit here lying, but
it's yours.
You're breaking up right now. Kenya, confirm.
Yo, I'm the third party. I first of all, I'm the guest. I don't even know what's going on right now.
So, talking about faith, we're not talking about medicine. We're not talking about cancer and all. Like, that's a different show. Why? Like, go on like show or something like that. Isn't like some guy his name Doc? Go on that show. This is talking about philosophy, theology, and all things logic and reason. So there are two different types of faith. I would define them as, you do have this blind faith. You do have this faith where you just blindly believe things for reasons. Like, because, but you also do have this thing where you have reasonable faith. For example, Charles Darwin, when he was on the Galapagos Islands and he formulated his model of evolution, he didn't have all of the evidence to actually confirm it. But it was rational to believe that all life come from a single ancestor, or that all life develops. It was rational to believe it because he observed it. It was rational. It was logical. But for somebody to say that there is a magical pink unicorn that is the reason for all of existence right now, there is no reason to believe that, because and it's not because it's just silly, but it's because we have a counter explanation that does a much better job in explaining those theological aspects of philosophy. Somebody said, no, you're done. Somebody said, in regards to your title, you could have stopped at why believe in God, because I said the title for the broadcast is why believe in God if we have science, and somebody said you could have just stopped at why believe in God. So, I mean, yeah, that's true. So, Kenya, you are correct. Yeah, if you have blind faith, that's stupid. Like, that's how people die. That's dumb. Like, please stop. If you have blind faith, no, you're going to kill somebody. Like, if a doctor just if we just go and we have blind faith, you're going to die. But that's not how people live their day-to-day life, of course. And that's not what Christians mean when they say have. At least that's not what I mean when I say have faith. There may be some people who say that they have faith for reasons, and that's bad. But you do need to have a rational belief. And we all, not just religious people, but we all on our day to day, we all believe in things that make sense. It makes sense to believe in that thing. So when I make my argument for God, what I'm arguing is that I have a rational belief, or I hold to this belief for logical reasons, and this turns out to be the most logical or most rational conclusion. I can't prove it in the scientific sense, but I definitely can show you through what is it? In I guess deductive means, or I can show you through probability, right? That this is the most likely philosophical answer. And it's not 100% correct, or it's not 100% certain, like you said. When people who don't believe in a God argue in uncertainties, right? When you say, I'm not 100% certain, I would actually say that you sound a lot like a theist, because we're not 100% certain either. And we're not saying we are. We're saying that based off of what we do know, this seems to be the most rational conclusion. So that's what I would argue.
Well, to that argument, I respond with no, it doesn't mean we're close to or anything to a theist. And I will give you this much if you want, if you want to place labels, it leads us to agnostic, because the truth is nobody knows. Nobody knows. But when you make the claim, you get what I'm saying? There's a difference here. There's an inherent difference. If you make the claim that it is real, then you will have to prove it. And that's how it goes. It's like me saying, so if I definitely said, I know for a fact that God is not real, right? Then I have to prove that there is no God. Get what I'm saying? atheists are not proving, not claiming that. And I know I'm not claiming that as an atheist. I am claiming that there is no evidence that anyone has presented. Yeah, sure, you know, you can show me why you feel the way you feel. You know what I mean? I can show you why I feel there isn't a God. You know?
Well, when you say evidence, do you mean a scientific evidence, a mathematical evidence?
And I feel like with this whole evidence thing, we're probably missing the main point of the evidence. What I'm talking about for me as an individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not speaking for other atheists on this one, but for me as an individual, I want tangible evidence that can prove God's existence. So it has to be something physical, or in the words of George Carlin, I don't know, if I could see something, kind of helps the credibility along. You know what I mean? That's what George Carlin said. It's important to know these things. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
So, like, you do know, like, we can't go to like heaven's gates right now. We can't, like, I can't take you on a trip to heaven right now in a flying chariot. I wish I could, but we can't do that. So I can't give you scientific evidence. I could probably give you mathematical evidence. I could give you philosophical arguments, or if the argument is both solid and if the argument is both sound and valid, that will be a philosophical proof. But I think if you want tangible evidence for God's existence, like I said, you will never find it. Although other fields of knowledge that let us know about reality, and they are just as valid as scientific evidence. So, like I said before, mathematical, philosophical,
how so?
Historical, So we have.
I said how so?
So I can give you historical evidence of myself. I mean, if you never met me, let's say I wasn't even talking right now. Somebody has evidence of me left behind because they could find my social security card, and they could say, based off of this social security card, based off of this historical piece of evidence, I know Wayne existed. So that would be just as valid as an empirical view or an empirical evidence of myself. But so I because what I'm trying to show is you can have evidence for a thing, and it doesn't have to be scientific, but it doesn't mean that it's not as powerful. So, for example, I could mathematically describe you right now, not scientifically, but I could mathematically showcase you, your length, your height, your depth, your temperature, your weight. That is mathematically describing your existence, and it's not scientific, but it's just as valid or even more powerful because mathematics is actually a proof. Science deals with evidence, but math deals with proof. So actually, if I give a mathematical proof of your existence, you could say that would be just as or more valid than the scientific evidence. So as far as God goes, I guess I could say it's a category error to want tangible evidence for God. It would kind of be like somebody asking for like a square circle.
Okay, well then my whole thing is, and I want you to keep your mic on because I want you to answer each and every one of these individual questions, right? And it's to jump on your point. Your point was you could mathematically prove you exist through weight, height, things like that. Can you tell me how much God weighs?
I would say.
Can you tell me? Wait. Can you tell me how tall God is? Can you tell me how God looks? Can you tell me what is God actually a spirit? Is God actually a he? Because a lot of people, when they speak about God, they say he as a replacement, as if they place a gender on a God, but they don't understand that if you put a gender on a god, it is no longer a god because that is something that pertains to the natural world or the natural realm. Something can be asexual, you know what I'm saying? But you have to provide that all in these stocks. If you cannot provide the evidence of how tall is God? Wait, how does God look? How does God weigh? There's by the same evidence that you feel that you could use to present yourself, right? That you just use as an example that you can mathematically prove God on. It is not possible for you or really anyone for that matter to tell me that. You know what I mean? So this is where evidence or physical or tangible evidence, right, is very important, and it's not in fact the category of error. Excuse me. It's like if we cannot jump down to these things, it's more of a sense of and it's jumping back to my example. If I said there's a man that is flapping his wings like a bird and he is able to fly without any assistance, you are going to need to see evidence of that. You're going to either be like, yo, you're bullshitting, or yo, I need to see this for myself, or I need some evidence to understand that this is possible and how this is possible. Can I do this myself? Is there any discovery on this level? So when it comes down to you saying, oh, well, you know, you can tell me your weight. Yes, you can prove that you exist. You can prove that you exist. I can prove that I exist. I can prove that my ancestors exist. You know what I'm saying? And that's not on faith or anything. That's like through my hard-earned research. The last name that I have is actually from my ancestors way back when. And it took me 5.5 years. 5.5 years to find all that research. So this is not me saying there isn't a God. I just find no reason to believe in a God until these things can be shown. These things are very important in the belief of God. If one is to say, well, I can show my own weight, I can show, you know, my own skin color, I can show my own face. Well, cool. Can you do that for God? Since we're talking about the subject of God. If you can't, you know, and no offense, because I'm not trying to offend nobody, then I have no reason to believe you. You get what I'm saying? It's like, it's just not valid. It's more in the sense of like not believing in your claim because you cannot bring the stuff that you claim. You know, so it's always down to that. Sure, you know, sure, I can hear stories all day long about how faith has worked for somebody else, but I need to see it. You know what I'm saying? And sure, you know, the flu, and you know, no offense to Cool Wayne and nothing like that, the flu's whatever, right? It's super, super freaking easy to get better from the flu. Now, if he did something like, well, guess what? I got pneumonia and I got better without any type of doctor help or anything that serious, then shit, you better show me that evidence too, because I want to see that. You know what I'm saying? Not for real, because it's like, it's that important. And we don't understand as people that make claims, and when people make claims, we go, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to say this because that's how I feel. That's how you feel. Sure, good for you. But if you're going to say it like you know, it's a whole separate section here. You know what I mean? And just because you feel it's the most valid answer does not mean it is the valid answer. You get what I'm saying? There's a difference here. There's a difference. So, I mean, for me, you know, I feel, right? Me as an atheist, right? I don't know, but I do feel that the most valid answer is there is no God. Now, what if I die and I find out there is a God? You know what I'm saying? Now I'm gonna be like, well, looks like, or how Bender says that shit. Well, I'm boned. That's what it is. You know what I mean? That's what it is. But I'm not going to just believe it if I don't have evidence on it. And I hope, and I really do hope that if there is a God, right? If there is a God, that it would be understanding enough to be like, well, you know what? Your level of evidence was not satisfied. So I cannot put you in a place of eternal torture because you do not believe in me. It's like people, someone else being mad because I didn't know who they are, or you being mad because I didn't know you. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, I don't know you, Wayne. You know, I just add you because I thought you were a black atheist, and I want to be around the same community. And you're like, well, I'm offended now because I'm not a black atheist. I'm actually, you know, you flip out about that. That's not at all a good way to handle a situation, and it's not fair. It's not right, and it's kind of being a dick. You know, we're being honest here. It's kind of being a dick, and I mean, it falls down to the point of, since we're gonna go by your point, do you have the weight of God? Do you have the sight of God? Or height? Excuse me. Do you know how God looks? Do you know where in the universe God is? Do you know where in the universe God is? If you do not, then what reason do I have to believe you? Because you feel there is? And I'm sorry, there's just no point to me feeling that way. You know, there's no point to me going, you know what? Yeah, he feels that way, therefore I should believe it. It's just not fair. And it's just like, it just doesn't make sense. So, you know, because if we're to play that game, I don't feel there's not a God. So do you want to not believe in God too? Because I feel that there definitely isn't a God. Or do you go, well, he didn't make a claim yet, so I'm gonna leave him alone. That's whatever. That's his lack of belief. And that's what it is. But if I tell you, if I ever do tell you there is no God, then it is your responsibility to throw me and pin me to the wall and say, you know what? Prove it. And of course, I'm speaking metaphorically, you know, pause. Pause. But metaphorically, right? It is your job to be like, all right, now it's your turn to prove it. Because you just said there isn't one. How do you know? What is the evidence? And you should do that to any atheist. Any atheist. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? That you believe something or don't believe something. But once you say you know for a fact, you have to present the evidence. And in the words of Christopher Hitchens, the more extraordinary the claim, the more extraordinary the evidence. You know what I'm saying? And you need to have that. And you need to have that.
Okay. Give me a mouthful there. But I'll try and respond to your main point. So you said, can I show you what God looks like? Can I show you the height of God, the weight of God, etc.? I have two answers. It depends on what you mean. I can give you predictive, or I could give you estimates of these things, because of course all of these things can be found in the person of Jesus Christ, being that Jesus is what Christians believe to be the human incarnation of God. But also, at the same time, in the philosophical aspect of it, your question doesn't make sense, because God, of course, God the Father, being the head, being the Godhead, it's an abstract concept, like I said. So it's like, what if I asked you, could you go to the refrigerator and get me a bottle of logic? You'll be like, what are you talking about? Because logic is an abstract concept. If I told you, before I can believe in reason, I need to be able to feel it, you would be like, what are you talking about? Reason is an abstract concept. If I told you to paint me a square circle, you would say that doesn't exist. So that type of evidence you're looking for, it doesn't exist because it doesn't make sense. So what I would say is, you probably would have to redefine the type of evidence you're looking for. Is that a square or is that a circle? And also, a circle doesn't necessarily exist neither, because a circle is a two-dimensional object and we live in the third dimension.
All right. So to tell me that me asking for the weight of God is basically not, I guess, it's nonsensical, right? To say,
So what I would say is when people ask those type of questions, in essence, you have just said nothing. Because if you if you say a sentence that doesn't make sense, you have just said nothing.
all right, well, my whole thing is if you're going to say that, then that destroys your entire point for I guess saying you can mathematically prove God by, or rather, you can prove yourself. You get what I'm saying? Because then that was what you said. This is what you had said at
Mhm.
first, right? You had
I
said,
didn't.
oh, well, I can show mathematical proof of myself as an example, correct? As an example to say you can mathematically prove God. And within that itself, that then becomes.
Would you be interested in me showing you a mathematical model of God? It's not. I wouldn't say it is a proof, but it is more of a description. And of course, being that God is outside of the natural world, it's no way to test it. But it's an attempt to mathematically describe what you were talking about, and I'll explain it because it's more complicated than what you think.
I could imagine, and here's the thing where it's gonna suck a little bit for you, and I don't want you to feel like I'm being closed-minded, right? As many theists say about us atheists. But I would need you to then give that mathematical model, right, to the Academy of Science or something that powerful and say, hey, would this prove God? And two things may happen. You may be right, and good for you if you are, but then the painful part that you may get laughed out of the building. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not trying to diss you. You feel me? I'm just saying.
So I can actually answer that by saying this actually has been given to an elite group of mathematicians, because I didn't just get this from myself. So the idea that I have, the, the idea is original, but the math has already been done. It's nothing but it's calculus, but it's how can I explain that? Okay, because I don't have my pictures. Um, are you familiar with sets?
Sets, as in, are you about to do the whatchamacallit theory? And they said that theory holds nothing because it applied to rabbits.
Hmm? Oh
I'm
no, I
sorry.
don't.
I thought you meant the there's this theory based on I forget this mathematician's name. This is the worst moment to forget his name. But it goes 1 and 1, then 1 3 1, then 1 3 3 1, and it's constant math set theory. But if it's not that,
It's it's not that, but
it's not that. But you know what math I'm talking about though, right?
yeah. So when you do with sets, when you do calculus and stuff like that, and you can have many different sets and those sets. Yeah. So yeah,
Right, right. But it was applying to rabbits. It was saying like if there's one rabbit, I don't know. It's really complicated.
So with us knowing that we live in different dimensions, and we live in there's not different dimensions of time. There are three spaces. There are three spatial dimensions, and there is one dimension of time that intersects. So you have X, Y, Z, and W. They could be named anything. They could be named anything. They're just descriptions, or they're just values that we give, like X. So they they go X, Y. I can't do it with my fingers, but they're think of it as a how can I put it? Think of it as a what's that thing people used when they oh my gosh on a map. Think of it as different axes, And each axis actually describes another dimension. So for every dimension you go up, you need another axis. So your first axis would be X, and then the intersecting axis would be Y. You have your X axis and your Y axis. And then for the third dimension, there's another axis that goes perpendicular to those axes, and that will give you length, width, and depth. So those would be your 3 dimensions. And then you have your fourth dimension of time, which will be Z. So being that we know we live in 3 dimensions and all that stuff, there are other dimensions that we hypothesize about with string theory and superstring theory. From string theory tells us that we should expect for us to live in about 11 or 10. With that being the case, if there is a God that does exist, it wouldn't be that he exists not only outside of our dimension, but because he's omnipresent, he would be also hyper or omnidimensional. He would exist in all of our dimensions, in all places, at all times. With that being the case, with this divine being or this causal agent being that, he will also be infinite. So this model basically proposes, what if Christianity is correct? What if this infinite causal agent or this divine being, what if he decides to enter into our dimension of time so he can reveal himself or show himself to us? What if he does do that mathematical proof? What if he shows himself to us and we actually can touch him and we can feel him and we can actually do testing on him? So that infinite being would regress into a finite being. So let's say this infinite being, he's made up of an infinite set, and he regresses into a finite set. Well, guess what? Because his set is infinite, and he regresses. Guess what? He's still infinite. Because if you take away a finite set from an infinite set, it's still infinite. And so you have this infinite cosmic being regressive. He's still infinite, but guess what? You have this dual nature. You have this dual nature where he's infinite, but guess what? He's also human. But because he's infinite, he's not partially human or partially God or partially divine. He's fully divine and he's fully human. Because if you, like I just said, if you take a finite number away from an infinite set, it's still infinite. And so basically the model is a description of what does God look like if his set were to become finite. What does God look like if he geometrically went from being infinite to finite into our existence? And the mathematical description of this event actually not only is plausible, but it makes sense. And so basically what I'm saying is, in this model, everybody's saying later. Oh, he just left. Okay. So basically in this mathematical model, it basically demonstrates that the Christian theology, and get this, it comports with reality. It comports with our understanding with how mathematics, how geometry, and how our physics, well, not our physics, but how our mathematics works. So is it a proof of God? I would say no, but I would say it's a very good description of what we would expect if a God did do what you suppose he should do. And guess what? Because we do have historical evidence and modeling of Jesus of Nazareth, it would definitely imply that, oh man, this Christian theology is ahead of its time. Not because they knew anything about math or geometry or sets, but it could just be that it comports with reality, because get this, because it's true. And so that's using Occam's razor. And with that, I think I'm going to shut up. I think I bored you to death.
Nah, not at all, man. Not at all. In fact, I haven't done this before because it's been a long time since I debated, but I was taking notes. I love to take notes when I hear someone, just so I could hear every single piece and write it down and make sure I have it in the memory, because I don't want to be forgetting like you, brother. Nah, I'm teasing. But so first things first, sure, you said a very key term within your example, or rather hypothesis, right? You said, what if God did this? And that those two words are very important. What if God didn't do that? You know what I'm saying? What if? And the what if question is now where we can jump all over the place. And now I'm not trying to be a jerk or nothing, but you were like, saying that what if, and that's very important. We can always go through what ifs. Well, what if there is no God, right? And you said there's historical evidence of Jesus, and I really think, and I'll even tag you on the picture since we got each other on Facebook, right? The Catholic Church has admitted that Jesus may have existed, yet there's reason to doubt all of the supernatural stuff that was added on. And those are by default Christians. You get what I'm saying? Oh, and they admitted that it was forgery from the pagan religions, just like how we celebrate Christmas and things like that. And I'm sure you're very aware of this. And I'm not doubting your intellect on these things. I'm just saying. So when we get down to it, you also said that it was an infinite human God. Well, if we are to say that it's an infinite human God, those two words contradict each other within itself. Human and God. It can't be a human God. I mean, it just contradicts each other. It takes away the power of what a God is assumed to have. And now you said it was infinite.
Let me jump on that, because being that this being is infinite, if he decides to, jump into our plane of space and becomes a human, he would still be infinite. He still would be God. But he wouldn't be one or the other. He would be both. He would be fully God, and he also would be fully human. And the mathematics actually shows it.
And I mean, it's kind of one of the other, and I'll tell you why. And it's one of the other because and I got no math on this, right? Because this is just a hypothetical math question, or math problem, if you will. This can either be a human or a God, because something needs to possess supernatural powers or supernatural entity powers. But so therefore it cannot be a human, because humans do not possess supernatural powers. Now, if you are claiming, you feel me? If you're claiming that it does have supernatural powers as a human, that evidence would need to be proven. And as I just stated, even the Catholic Church, aka one of the most worst places ever, right? from what we know about recent stuff, these guys have admitted to forgery and lying about this stuff that comes out of the Christianity belief. Now, why would it be only Christianity? Who is to say that it isn't the pagans? Who is to say that it isn't the Hindus? Who is to say that it isn't freaking Buddha, for all we care? You know what I'm saying? We cannot make such a heavy claim on one specific religion. And I'm sure you know this, because you are a very intelligent brother, right? I'm sure you know this. Christianity is not a religion that's for black people in the first place. It's not even a religion for black people in the first place. We know this because it came from slavery, and it was either, hey, you either believe what I say, or I'm gonna crack this whip on your ass. You don't want that. You know, so of course you're going to believe what the slave master believed. You know what I'm saying? So all of these in your mathematical equation were not also put into it. So if we say, what if God presented evidence? And I'm going to answer that. If God did present evidence, I would be like, holy shit, there is a God. Okay, now I know where my beliefs need to go toward to. If it is the Christian God, then I know what belief I have or what religion I have to follow. You get what I'm saying? But what if it is a Hindu God? What if it is a pagan God? What if it is another God that we don't even put into our conversation right now, that we're not putting into our conversations? There are too many gods to believe that one specifically would be the correct one. And especially, and this is where the evidence becomes heavy. When you go to Christianity, you go, okay, well, it's the Christian God. Now you have to show, well, what, and this is without the evidence of God, right? What is the evidence that it is the Christian God? What is the evidence that there is a God? What evidence is there a Christian God? How do we know it doesn't belong to a Hindu God? You know what I'm saying? First of all, in the Hindu religion alone, there are over, if I'm correct, there are over 300 million gods. There's like a god of tables for some reason in that belief. You know what I'm saying? So we cannot jump down to once again, a definitive piece of evidence that we can find for a God at all. So now we can go, okay, yeah, sure. It's an infinite human God that existed, even though people of the religion has actually admitted, okay, well, Jesus was real. There's no reason to doubt Jesus's existence, but he may have not had the supernatural powers. So now, if this is something that you say, yeah, sure, there's a supernatural piece to it, but there's a other side of the denomination of your religion saying, well, actually, he wasn't supernatural, then that means that there is no firm agreement as well within this belief system. So now we need to come down to an agreement, an understanding, and we need to find out how can we present this evidence, because we can play with what ifs all day. I don't got time to play with what ifs. What if I died right now? You know what I'm saying? What if I just fell asleep? Like, come on. So what ifs are very, very complicated to deal with. And I don't mean complicated in the sense that, we can't come down to an answer, but in the sense of we won't ever find the right answer in this what if examples. So how do we know, honestly, how do we know that your math equation is correct? And I mean, sure, some people may even like your math math example. And I'm okay with that. And I'm glad. And you know what, brother? I hope you keep pushing. I hope you get it. But my whole thing is, I need you to be able to present that it is correct, rather based on some people agree. Because if it's not a majority of the belief or of the people of that belief, because there may even be people in this, whoever watches this video, because I feel like this video went on for a while, but there may be people who are watching this and go, well, I don't agree with what Wayne Science Enthusiast is saying. I actually feel this way. So my whole thing is, we need an agreement, at least a majority agreement and understanding, and we need it proven, because we can go about what we don't like. I could go, okay, I believe that if I jump head first into a dinosaur, a Tyrannosaurus Rex's mouth, that I won't die. And I could believe that, but that doesn't mean it's true. I'm trying to get down to what is actually right. We all understand that if dinosaurs were still a thing, even though, descendants of dinosaurs, or theropods rather, aka pigeons, are actually a thing, we do understand that I would actually die, and whoever else did it would die. So my whole thing is what I want from not just from you, but from every single person that believes in God. How do you prove it? You know what I mean? How do you actually have the evidence right there? And it's okay. We could talk mathematical, right? We don't need physical. We could talk mathematical. But if we're going to jump on what ifs, I don't see what the point is, because what ifs are, whatever. We already know we could do what ifs all day. And like I said, I'm gonna tag you in that picture just so you don't think I'm BSing you with the whole Catholic Church thing.
Is it a meme or is it like an actual link to like? Because I'm interested in this.
It actually comes from the Catholic Encyclopedia, so it's not a meme. It's actually it's like a screenshot that I had took of the definition. If you want, I'll send you the actual link too, just so you can read it for yourself and all that. I have no problem with that. I just wanted to let you know that there are disagreements. There are some people who feel, well, Jesus was real, but he didn't have supernatural powers. Then there's some of you who feel, well, Jesus was real and he was a God and he was human. And, just the logic behind all of it by itself, just the logic by itself. No, and this is not to be mean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and finish it with, this is not to be mean, right? But with the whole Mother Mary and whatnot, this is by far the most absurd story I've ever heard. So, not Jesus. God put a daughter in Mary that she didn't even ask for. And so when she did it, she gave birth to Jesus, who is also God, but within himself, but he's not himself. But there's an issue for some reason. The only way to get it done is God has to die in order to be reborn, to take back our sins, to make up for it, whatever, right? And now he died, but he came back. With that within itself, right? That is like saying, oh, well, he died for our sins, but he took them back. But he took it back in 3 days. So it was cool. He said, F it. I'm just going to go ahead and leave the cave, let the other people find me or not find me and freak out about it and be like, yo, he's not in the cave, without putting in effort to think, well, what if someone is just an effed up person and stole a human body? Because let's be honest, even though we don't like it, it's true that people are into that kind of sick shit. You know what I'm saying? There are people into that sick shit. So we need to come down to that evidence. And with that, I'm sorry, I'm done. Now I'll shut up.
So one of the things you said is the Catholics said in their link that they made it up or something like that. So like I said, when you have we have different interpretations of a historical event, you expect for testimonials or even recollections of the event to be different. It does, but some people will either remember some things differently or they'll have different interpretations of what happened. For example, the flood narrative that people have been arguing about for over 4,000 years. Now the argument has kind of shifted to, was it a worldwide flood or was it a global flood? But when it first happened, some people would say, it didn't happen this way, it happened that way, it happened this way, and it happened. So you have so many different interpretations of it. But you know how we can actually find out the nitty gritty of it is the evidence, right?
Keep like you said. Yeah. I'm sorry, keep going real fast. I'm just gonna get up real fast. I need to turn on my AC because homeboy is sweating. So yeah, keep going though.
Yeah,
I can hear you. I'm just letting you know about that.
Yeah. But if you're going to go into a narrative of conspiracy, so I think I told you that so not only do I study science, but I study detective methodology. And so when it comes to conspiracy theories, I think that's a weak conspiracy because there are about 3 or 4 key things that all conspiracies have. Number one, conspiracies do not last more than about, I'll say, like 40 years. the longest a conspiracy can probably last is maybe around like 90 to 100. We actually haven't seen a conspiracy that's lasted that long. Most conspiracies don't last until they crack around like 20. They don't last for generations or even thousands of years. Um, oh, that's somebody else. So yeah, conspiracies don't last thousands of years. Reason being is because there will always be a whistleblower, always. So it's not something where the Catholic Church is going to wait until 2018 and finally come out after thousands of years and finally say, "Oh yeah, we made this thing up." Conspiracies don't work that way. Secondly, with conspiracies, they almost always involve a small amount of people. And the reason being is because it relates to the first point. If you have a lot of people in a conspiracy especially over thousands of years, there's going to be a whistleblower. So there's no way they could have kept this under wrap for thousands of years, and they finally come out with this conspiracy theory. Small number of people. What else? Oh, and usually with conspiracies, they usually do stay under wraps because of some type of family bond. If these people don't have any type of bond or any type of connection for the lie, then they are no doubt going to whistleblow. So with the Catholic Church, I don't know how they view each other and maybe like a family or etc. But so like we know that Catholics have a bad history of like sexual, misconduct and stuff like that because of whistleblowers. The last case, that made the news, that stuff happened in around like in 2008. It's been 10 years. It hasn't even been 20 years. And that conspiracy just now came out in 2008. And I think the earliest people, reported on that happening was 10 years ago. Like I said, most conspiracies, the longest they usually last is around 20 years. That conspiracy that just recently came out with the Catholic Church, it hasn't even made 20 years yet. That probably was like 10 years ago. So if that is the case, that the Catholic Church came out and said this has been a big conspiracy for the last 1,000 years, based off of what I know, off of how conspiracies work, based off of what myself and any other person who studied detective methodology, or even one guy who I could get in contact, J. Warner Wallace, he's a detective himself. They will tell you that's not how conspiracies work. But you said there's a lot of disagreement in the church as far as Jesus. And I would say that is what you would expect based off of testimony, based off of historical testimony or historical evidence. You do have cases where people have different interpretations or they remember certain things differently, et cetera, et cetera. If you do have an event that happens and there are all different testimonies, and all of those different testimonies, they all recollect the same event the same exact way, then you can probably assume that there was some what do they call it? It's a word for it in criminology. The word for it. It starts with a C. Some form of corruption. There you go. Where people were definitely coached on what to say and how to say it. You can most likely see if an account is true because those accounts are organic. Everybody will remember certain things differently from one another. So from the fact that there is some originality and some organicness, I can't speak, in the testimonies of the Bible, of the New Testament, the reliability of those accounts definitely go up. So you say you want definitive proof. You want proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. Or you know what? You actually didn't. You said you want physical proof. Can't give you physical proof of of God's existence, being that that's a category error. If you want proof beyond a shadow of a doubt, what we do in criminology is we call it death to, or it's called death by 1,000 paper cuts. There you go. It's called death by 1,000 paper cuts. And so what you can actually do is you can start to build a case. And when you get done building a case with of evidence is, then based off of that numerous evidence of the case you built, you have no reason to doubt the case that you finally built. And so the best advice I could tell you to do is to build a case. And then what you can try to do, if you want to get into a little bit of modeling, is you can try and tear your case apart with so many different doubts. And if your case still holds after you build that Christian case of Christianity or whatever, then it wouldn't make sense for you to go and believe in any other type of religion or any other type of philosophical explanation, because the case you built best explains what you're trying to find out. So, for example, there could be another case that explains cosmology better than Big Bang cosmology, but we don't care because we know that Big Bang cosmology explains the cosmos the best. Sure, there are many other models of reality, or I'm not going to say of cosmology, but we know Big Bang cosmology does it the best. We know evolution explains development the best. And so when it comes to Christianity, no, there could be another religion or another faith that we just haven't heard of yet. But as of now, Christianity would best explain at least the philosophical origins of the universe and that causal agency of miracles. It would do that in the best regard to other religions. So that's how I would respond to your points. Last point you made was Black people. Christianity is not a religion for Black people. Not sure if you know this or not, but Ethiopia was actually one of the first Christian nations. 100 years before Constantine made Rome a Christian nation. Actually, Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion, or you could say it's an East Asian religion, but definitely not a European religion. As you know, Asia and Europe are thousands of miles apart on different parts of the equator. So I'll end my response with that. But definitely, if you're really like honestly looking for evidences for God or evidence for God, the best advice I could tell you is build a case. If you notice, something that almost every atheist who's converted, what they all have in common is they never were convinced by one piece of evidence, which you just said, you want one piece of evidence. They all were convinced by many different pieces of evidence that they came across. And it came to a point where in criminology, we call it, they died by 1,000 paper cuts, because it got to be so much substantial evidence where they just couldn't deny it any longer. And as a matter of fact, I think I told you, I'm an ex-younger creationist myself. What convinced me that evolution was true wasn't the fact that I got one piece of evidence. I did a full-fledged case, and I was find out what's true about evolution, and it was multiple pieces of evolution where, and this is the story of how I actually changed my belief in a nutshell. How I changed what I believed about evolution. I was in the shower, and you actually have your most philosophical musings when you're washing up. I don't know why, but I was in the shower and I was thinking about all this stuff. I was thinking about genetic drift. I was thinking about human chromosome 2, which is a really powerful evidence for evolution. And I thought to myself, it's really hard for me to believe that this is true. And the next thought that came to my mind was, but it doesn't matter because I have so many different evidences that evolution is true. It wouldn't make any sense for me to deny it any longer. And it was that night when I was in the shower thinking about all of these different things that it was that death by a thousand paper cuts, and I had built that strong evidence for evolution that I finally accepted it. And so that a lot of people don't know that. And I'm telling you and the people who are watching it for the first time, that's how I accepted evolution. And it wasn't one piece of evidence. It was many different pieces of evidence. And it was over a long period of time where I was looking into this stuff every day, investigating this stuff until I came to the best conclusion. So for you and for any other atheist that's watching, it's not going to be something where you change your mind like that. You're going to be wrestling with this stuff for a long time. You're going to be doing research day and night, and you're going to be building your case so you can come to the best conclusion. So definitely like these debates, I won't say they don't change anything. My first debate with a guy named Steve McRae, he actually got me to make the decision to accept macroevolution. I mean, I came a long way. I didn't accept macroevolution. I didn't accept microevolution. And through having discussions and having talks and building, cases, I changed my mind. And so what I would tell any atheist who really is wholeheartedly searching, it's going to take time. It's going to take for you to build your case. And it's definitely not going to happen overnight. So definitely let's keep on having these conversations. Let's keep on having these talks. So maybe somewhere down the line in the future, you might change your mind. So that's the best thing I can probably say to you.
Well, first I want to go ahead and tackle this whole conspiracy theory thing. No, this was actually way before 2018. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't like something I discovered this year. I probably discovered this when I became an atheist. And that was and I'm not sure, and I don't want to go ahead and tell people, why, because that's a really long story within itself. But the reason why, in a quick nutshell, I read the entire Bible. You know what I'm saying? That book, granted, 1,300 pages, takes a long time to read. Took me about 6 months. I don't want to do that again. I don't ever want to do it again. But you said Christianity had started in Ethiopia, which I actually go ahead. No, wait, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing.
No. So Christianity started in the Middle East, but what I was saying was Ethiopia was one of the first Christian nations.
Okay, my fault then. One of the first Christian nations. My fault. So within that in itself, there is a problem with the fact then that the Bible does, in fact, if we're to claim Christianity was one of the first nations, right, in Africa, or rather, one of the first nations in Africa was Ethiopia to I guess, founded Christianity. They talk about the approval of slavery. And if we're to go by basing things off of the Bible, I think we then, and I really don't want to sound like Uncle Tom, so I'm going to try to tread softly on this right here, then slavery should still be legal in the United States and everywhere else because, hey, the Bible says it, and it talks about Christian slaves. So Christian slaves should also be legal, and Jewish slaves should also be legal by this point, if we're going to talk about the Bible. Now, and I think you froze up on me again. Oh, okay, never mind. Looked like you were frozen. But so now I just got to go ahead and we jump on this with every single Bible verse that talks about the approval of slavery. Does that mean slavery is okay? Does that mean we should still have slaves? You know what I'm saying? Because we're to use examples from the Bible or use scripture verses from the Bible. Should slavery still be something that's legal? And by the way, let's not forget, this is a divinely inspired book by God. So we cannot be selective. We cannot be selective. Either you accept the whole shit or you just, and I'm not talking to you once again, I'm saying in general. or you're just, you're faking it, or you're just like, hey, I'm just gonna believe what I want to believe because it satisfies my euphoria. Mm-hmm. So we need to be able to say, okay, is Christianity correct? And if it is, that means the Bible is correct. If the Bible is correct, then that means slavery should still be around, both in the Old and the New Testament. Both in the Old and the New Testament, it is approved. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are not saying, oh well, one day it was bad, and then the New Testament came along and changed things, because it didn't. You know what I'm saying? It in fact says, slaves, obey your masters. If I'm correct, in Ephesians 6.
I think you kind of sharpshooting. All right, so I think you are jumping to conclusions. I see you're very passionate about this.
Yeah, man. No, I'm very passionate, man. I cannot go ahead and go through this calmly because, like I said, I read the whole book. That's what made me atheist in the first place.
So, did you read the whole book in its proper context?
So, is there a proper context for slavery? Is there a proper context for slavery?
When it comes to reading an ancient book, I think it is.
I don't think so.
So when most people open up the Bible, and no, you would probably never get this if you never had the education of going to like a Bible college or going to school for archaeology. So I understand how most everyday people would get this correct. I mean, would get this incorrect. But the point of the matter is, the Bible is an old book. This book has been around for like what, 4,000 years maybe? And so when you're looking at not just the Bible, but any ancient book, you have to understand that it was written from the perspective of ancient Near Eastern people. And that's where people actually have that's where people run into issues. So, like, I don't know no, we haven't spoken about this. Okay. So, the Bible, it makes scientific claims. And guess what? Those scientific claims are wrong. I don't know if people understand that or not, but those scientific claims that the Bible makes, they are incorrect. But there's a reason why. The reason why is because the people who wrote the Bible, they lived 4,000 years ago. They didn't know about science. They were writing in Hebrew to their Hebrew audience, who they didn't understand either. And so people say, how come God didn't just give these people some type of scientific knowledge? Well, guess what? If God gave these people some type of scientific knowledge, their audience wouldn't be able to understand it. The only person who would probably be able to understand it would be the ancient person writing it. But they need to go back and they need to be able to communicate with their audience. Guess what? Most of the sciences and the things we know about today, there is no ancient Hebrew word for. There is no ancient Hebrew word for astrophysics or biology or general relativity. Because guess what? That stuff didn't exist yet. So when God is using these people to write the Bible, to write down the story, he has to use what they already know, because the stuff we know about today doesn't exist. It would be the same as if 100 years from now, somebody opens up a science book that we wrote today or a history book we had today, and people 100 years from now would say, wow, they didn't know about what we know now. Of course. And so if you do think that somehow, some way, everything they wrote about in the Bible is supposed to be like scientifically correct, that is incorrect, because you're taking the human will relate to what you said about slavery. So you said, if this is a divinely inspired book, shouldn't we listen to what they thought about slavery? That's the key point. So in the Old Testament, a lot of people think that the commands in the Old Testament came from God. They did not. Like I just said, the Bible was written by humans. It was written by humans.
So my number one question is then, does that then say that the Bible was not in fact inspired by God? You cannot say You cannot say yes to this question. You cannot. You know what I'm saying? You cannot. No, not in any stance, because once again, you're saying, wait. You're saying that a human made this book, correct? And if you say a human made it, but then God made some of the parts, that's okay. So then we need to understand that this book, then you have to say then this book is wrong and it's incorrect. And it's short, has some good things. But slavery. I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Wait. Okay. Let me get the whole context out. So this is the full picture. This is why especially most Western people who believe certain things about the Bible incorrectly, this is why they believe what they believe. So most people think that when somebody was writing the Bible, or at least this is how they think the Bible was inspired. They think one day this ancient author is eating dinner in his room or something, and out of nowhere, some like bright light comes out of the sky, and some face comes out of heaven or something, and they tell them, write this down in this book. Or maybe God possesses this person so they can write down what God wants them to write down. That's not how it happened. That's a lot similar to how Muslims think of divine inspiration and not Christians or Jewish people. So
that's not how I think about it, but I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that's not how I think about it, right?
Right. So I guess like when people think about like biblical inspiration, they think that every word that's on the page came directly from God, or God told them what to write. So there is a view called providence, divine providence, where God is allowing these people to write. And guess what? He's allowing these people to write with what they know. They only know about things in the ancient Near East. They only know how to speak Hebrew. They only know what they know because guess what? That's what they know. They only know what they know. They know nothing else. They're ancient people. So as far as the commandments go in the Bible, the 10 commandments as described, if you follow the narrative, Moses goes on to what's the name of the mountain, guys? Mount Sarah something. He goes up to the top of the mountain. And as the narrative goes, God specifically writes down those commandments on those 2 tablets. But guess what? Moses comes down. And what happens when he comes down? These people, they make a priesthood, and they make a community, and they make a society. And when they make a society, guess what? They have laws, and they have rules, and they have a running community and a running society like we do today. And so they're trying their best to use the 10 commandments as a model. But guess what? Because they're humans and they live around other nations, guess what? They also use other nations' rules and other nations' laws. And the laws that you see in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, a lot of those laws, they come from the surrounding neighbors of Israel. And so there were other laws that people had in other countries and other nations about slaves and ownership. And so when the priesthood comes together, they're like, hey, we want to make a functioning society. Now remember, bearing in mind, slavery actually might be okay to them in some fashion. In their ancient train of mind, it actually may be okay for them to do things today because guess what? Morality evolves. Morality changes. Just like our set of moralities today are not the same as people's in the past because morality changes. So what's going on? Like, how can you paint a bigger picture of this? As these people are making their society and they're making their roles, God is sitting back and he's letting humanity play its part in moral evolution. So when you read something like in the Old Testament about the slave thing, They didn't get those commandments from God. And I can show you hundreds of commandments they didn't get from God. But even the narrative doesn't imply they got those laws from God. They got those laws from the other surrounding nations because they're human and we're human too. And we're trying our best to make our society with rules and laws that function, that are safe. But guess what? There is no human society that is 100% perfect because we're human. We're human. They were human. And we do imperfect things. And so we have things like laws. And sometimes there will be people who try and get around the laws because that's what humans do. So that's the best I can explain it to you. Oh, let me get to the part in the New Testament. In the proper context of the New Testament, you know, Christianity has this thing about not being violent and loving people and stuff like that. And so there were Christian slaves to the Roman Empire. You know, Paul was a political prisoner. He was more like a political slave. And so in the proper context, Paul is saying, hey, even though you're a slave, even though you're a political prisoner, still show respect to these people, etc., etc. It's not saying today that you should have slaves and your slaves need to respect you. The people who even enslaved African Christians, when they picked up the Bible and they started, spewing verses like slaves obey your master, they were not in the proper ancient or Eastern context, and they weren't even in the proper New Testimonial context. Even people today pick up the Bible and they get the wrong interpretation of it because, in the words of scholarship, though the Bible can be for you, the Bible was not written directly to you. The Bible was written to a specific audience and a specific time who had a specific different train of mind. And so most of what, even you today, most of what you might believe about the Bible might be completely false. If you didn't go to any type of like Bible college or any Near Eastern seminary, you probably wouldn't get the proper context of it. And I know you're going to say, I know your next question is next. I can probably predict them, but you can go. I can probably predict your next set of questions.
All right. Well, now I understand you said they changed the morality because we humans did change our morality. Yes, we are not anything close to perfect. My goodness, I hope that's why we don't discover aliens, man. I feel like we would end up dead from these aliens because humans would F that up. But first I want to go ahead and jump into saying that you said that God is watching us go through these things, and He explained to us in matters of the language and the things that we knew. At the same time, if God knows better and He would want better for human society, or excuse me, He or she, but rather I'll call God an it. If it would know better, or if it wants us to do better, right? It would then go, okay, well, I can tell you in the human language because I am God, or in the Hebrew language or the Jewish language, whatever language, because I am God, that I can give you this knowledge because slavery is wrong. Slavery is wrong. Not once in this book does it say slavery was bad. Yes, we can play this game of, oh, well, look at the time. Look at the time. It doesn't matter. People are convinced. You may feel differently, but other people are convinced that this is the word of God. They are convinced. They're not even believing. They are now convinced that this book has come from oogly spoogly over there with the terms of slavery. And they'll say, no, it doesn't, because they don't even read the damn book themselves. So this is a problem within our human society. Now, we need to stop believing stuff based on nothing with evidence, because we do not have the evidence of a God. And I do not find it at all accurate, nor does it make sense to go, well, I now believe in this God because I don't have the knowledge to think another option. That is not fair to them, and that is not fair to anybody. That is like, seriously, like you said, someone believing a pink unicorn did it because reasons. It's the same exact format. It's the same exact format. Now, you said a whole bunch of Christians now today are believers in this God and whatnot. And maybe I'm just taking this out of context, and if I am, just correct me. But I do feel like that's an ad populum fallacy. It does not make it correct. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make it correct.
No, my point was, many people today, not just Christians, they have a wrong understanding of the Bible because it's an ancient book. So you need to understand it in its ancient context. And I'll answer your thing about this liberty thing. And God, like I was saying, God could not have told these people certain truths about the world.
But I'm saying a lot of people don't understand that. You feel that they do. Sure, there's a few of us that do, but there's like I said, there's other people who believe every single word in this book is correct. I remember hearing from one of my Christian coworkers. She actually said that every word in the Bible is correct. Everything happened in that Bible. Everything happened. It is a documentary. It's not even false. She says this. When I asked her for evidence, she called me a Satan worshiper. This is not okay. This is what we know as destroying our intellect. These beliefs in a higher power destroy our intellect. It destroys who we are. Regardless, sure, there's people like you every now and then who are like, oh, hey, well, I got this whole science thing down. And you do, my brother. But my whole thing is there's not a lot of people who got this science thing down. There are people who think evolution, and as you understood evolution to be fact, there are people who think evolution is a way of saying God doesn't exist. And I'm sure you know this. And this is a problem within communities of human beings. And like you said, we're not perfect. But at the same time, we cannot keep having false beliefs in our lives just because it makes us feel good. I find it incredibly dangerous. And we cannot forget all of the danger that has come through Christianity, through the Muslim religion, through many of the religions that existed. We cannot forget the violence that has come for being Christian or for being Muslim or for being anything, but also with being those things as well, because you feel that's what God wants, because your holy book says so. There was, and I'm not sure if you saw this, but there was this documentary on those people, and you guys should watch the documentary. It's like maybe 43 minutes long. I'm not too sure. It's really long, and it bored me halfway to death. But where the people did do that example that I gave earlier with just praying and not taking medicine, and they ended up doing that to their child, and the innocent child who probably doesn't know why am I not at a doctor right now ended up dead because of these people who thought, oh, you know what? This book is 100% correct. This book is right. I believe in this book. Sure, there are some people who will believe that this book has fictional things or wrong implements a part of it. Like how you stated with the whole Adam and Eve thing, you know what I'm saying? Or the whole, oh, well, you know, let's just jump on an example. The whole Exodus crap, not everything in Exodus happened. But so it's like it just falls down into a pattern where it turns into word salad. We need to get a clear understanding. If this is not God's book, then no one, and I literally mean no one, should follow it. You yourself should not be given examples from that book if this is not the word of God. If you cannot, without a shadow of a doubt, prove that it is words from God, then it is not able to be quoted. Either this is the word of God or it isn't. And if it isn't, then there's no point listening to it. There's no point caring about it. You might as well just use the book But like jail people use the book and use it for rolling paper. You know what I'm saying? It's just like no point because it's either correct or it's not. And if it's not, then what is the point? It doesn't make sense. It's highly inaccurate. We already talked about the whole Adam and Eve thing and how I basically just knocked that right out the waters. How we cannot just go, here's a whole bunch of dirt in my hand and now a human is made. No, that is not how it works.
Is it
not how it works. That is inaccurately false.
I agree. Is it possible that you're looking at this ancient book with 21st century lens?
Is it possible that I'm looking at it with 21st century lens? What do you mean by that? I'm trying to get an understanding of that question.
You being a modern man who lives in 2018 are imposing your view, your culture, and your way of thinking onto an ancient text.
I would say I'm using a moral standard.
Well, no,
because
not the morality. So I'll even say like morality is more objectively subjective. It's not a black and white thing. Morality is whatever. Morality evolves. We know morality evolves.
So did you mean subjective then? Subjective, not objective?
Objectively subjective. I meant what I said. I'm not going to go into that. But when you look at not just the Bible, but any ancient book, the way you look at any ancient book that's around 2,000 years old, 4,000 years old, whatever, is you have to look at that book from the perspective of the ancient people.
But what I'm saying is, if there is a God, it would be able, like you said, it spoke to them in their time. This God would know how to speak to them in a more accurate and moral, objective way. He would not go, okay, well, I understand, or it wouldn't go, okay, well, I understand that, okay, you guys think slavery's cool. And, so this is what it is with slavery. No, it should go, if this God exists and if this God is nice or whatever, right? Or loving or whatnot, this God would go, okay, well, listen, this is your time, but I'm trying to let you know, this is not right. This is not right. This book should say, do not own another human being at all for any reason, whether it is Jewish slaves, white slaves, purple slaves, black slaves, no matter what the color is of the person, right? It should still come down to the point of God going, you know what? That's wrong. Don't do that. And it's in our language, whatever the language was. You get what I'm saying? It cannot bend to time. And if this God that you believe in, right? If this God knows everything, then this guy should go, well, you should probably stop. So and that's what it is.
I'll ask you, how long has it been since Juneteenth happened, since slaves got free? How long has it been since Jim Crow has been abolished? How long has it been since the first black man has joined the National Baseball League? I mean, how long has it been since black people have had our rights and stuff like that, and we've been equal citizens? And guess what? There are still people who are racist today. And guess what? God could literally, physically come down and tell these people, this is not right, this is wrong. And guess what? They wouldn't believe him. If God would have went back to these ancient people and told them truths about the world that they did not necessarily like, they would not believe him. And the perfect example of this would be the New Testament, where they did not believe him and they killed him.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The perfect example of what I was trying to tell you, where if God came on the planet today and he told racist people or bad people what you're doing is wrong. If they would not believe him. If you went back in time 4,000 years ago and told people this is wrong, they would not believe him. And the perfect example of these two things is in the New Testament when God physically incarnates himself and comes onto the planet. Guess what? They did not believe him.
There is absolutely no evidence of that to begin with. Next, if we were to, there's
I
no.
will say the Bible makes the prediction that there is a historical Jesus. We have more than enough of evidence for a historical Jesus. That, but
Circular reasoning.
do you reject? Wait. Do you reject the evidence of a historical Jesus because you think that implies divinity, or because I know that's why most atheists do that?
No, first of all, as I said, I do not deny a historical, belief in Jesus. And maybe I didn't say that. Maybe I told the story of the Catholic Encyclopedia. So what I'm going to say is I do not deny the existence of Jesus. I just don't add the actual, oogly boogly stuff onto it. I don't believe in the supernatural piece to it. There is no evidence. The Bible cannot be evidence of itself, because if you're obviously into understanding fallacies, that's called circular reasoning.
I'm talking about extra biblical evidence, like Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, that type of stuff. Even Paul's letters. So I could see if your argument was you can't use the Book of Mark to prove the Book of Mark. But when you have separate letters, like Paul's writings are considered separate from the Gospels. So they would be considered another piece of evidence of Jesus' existence.
You do understand that there are many biblical scholars who have actually proven that the books from these, followers of Jesus have not been written by any of the followers of Jesus. You do understand that. There is.
I would highly disagree.
You can highly disagree, but they actually say it. They go, these books were written by other authors who we do not know actually wrote them. We cannot say it was actually Paul. We can't say it was Mark. We can't even say it was Luke. We can't say it was anybody.
So that goes into another realm of more like conspiracy, because we do know, because we actually.
It's not conspiracy though.
Look.
Biblical
we actually
scholars.
No, what I'm saying is today we can actually take pieces of the Bible and we can use, I think it's radiometric dating or carbon dating, and we can actually date these pages, these copies, back to certain points in history, and so we can know when they were written and how old these people were when they wrote them, and etc. So now there is no getting around it.
There are biblical scholars who say the books were not written by these people. Like that's it. These are people that research the Bible every moment of every day. If they say that, then I kind of don't see where you're coming from.
I don't doubt that that's the case, but there are also who say that there is evidence for Jesus, and or that the actual books were written by the original disciples. But all of that to say, there may be different models. Like, for example, in science, there's different models of how life started on Earth, and they're all competing models. But what matters is what model has the best evidence. So I'm not denying that, but from what I know about the evidences, as far as those different books go, we have more than enough evidence to showcase that the people who wrote the Gospels and the letters of Paul and etc. wrote them. One great piece of evidence is in Paul's letters, and I think it is Ephesians. Paul actually quotes, what is it? He quotes the Tanakh, and he quotes, what is it? Oh my gosh. He quotes the Shema. There you go. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Shema, but the Shema is about now. It's about a 4,000-year-old. It's like a pledge, and what the Jews used to do in the Old Testament is they. I know you heard this phrase if you study the Bible. They would say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." And so Paul, in his writing, he actually writes, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." And then at the end of it, he puts, "Oh yeah, the Lord God is Jesus." And so it wasn't just some random thing he was writing. He's actually referencing older writings. He's actually referencing old Jewish citations. And so we know that whoever wrote this account was a Jew. But this Jew also believed in Jesus. So, I mean, we can infer that this most likely was Paul, because some random Jew is not just going to be writing that Jesus is Lord. To put that Jesus is the Lord God from the Old Testament, that will be blasphemy. And so that's one evidence that Paul actually did write his letters that he wrote, at least Ephesians. That's evidence that Paul wrote Ephesians. And there's more evidence that I could give to you again and again and again and again. So it doesn't matter what these people say. What matters is the evidence. And there are scholars on both sides who may say that Jesus' disciples wrote these messages and not. But what I know is the evidence goes on the other side. Unless you can actually give an explanation as to why that person wrote that in the New Testament, as well as Jude, as well as 1 Corinthians, where there are references to older Jewish writings that imply that this definitely was Paul, and the style of the writing all match. We know Paul's style and his writing. I mean, we know this stuff down to a T.
All right. So even if we go by your examples, and once again, you know, sure, this is probably me looking at this with a 21st century mindset, right? But at the same time, this, once again, God could have corrected this. This is no longer up for debate. This is something that God should go, wait a second, chill. Where Peter himself even writes something in the Bible about slavery, with telling slaves to be fearful of their masters because their masters are also people of God. So this is beyond asinine. This is beyond asinine. We cannot stay stuck in this little mindset where we're like, okay, well, look, it was this time. Well, here, I'm sorry to say, but your God would know, you know what? Okay, this is this time. I should probably fix this time because I am God. There's nothing else said.
Do you have any pets?
What?
Do you have any pets?
What happened?
Do you have any pets?
I'm having pets.
Do you have any?
Do I have any pets? Yeah.
Okay, what kind of pet do you have?
I have a really exotic pet. That's what I'll leave it at. I don't want people looking at me crazy.
You have like a parrot or a snake?
What happened?
You got a parrot?
Nah.
Well, nonetheless, what if I asked you, hey, how come he doesn't bark? How come he doesn't? How come I throw the stick and he doesn't go after the stick?
The dog?
Yeah, you have a dog?
No. But I'm just trying to follow your story.
Okay, so what if I asked you, why doesn't your pet go for walks? How come I took your pet out and he didn't pee on the tree? I took your pet out and he didn't bark. Your pet did everything else that pet was supposed to do. And then you say, yeah, because it's a parrot. And you said, no, how come the parrot just doesn't bark? How come the parrot just doesn't do this? And I say, because it's a parrot. And you're like, no, it should do this. And I'm like, it's a parrot. That's exactly what 21st century people do with a text like the Bible. They say, how come these people didn't do this? Because they're ancient people.
Not, actually, it's a false equivalency. How is a parrot a god, for one? For two, you're using an example that doesn't even match up with the actual example that I'm saying. The whole point of this is a god should do that if it knows everything. Now, are you going to say your God doesn't know everything? Will you admit that? Will you be one of the first theists to admit it? Will you say your God probably thought slavery was okay once upon a time, and that's why it was talking to those people in that time manner? You got to come down and drop to an actual point where it goes, God did this. And how do you know that God did this? How do you know? What is your evidence? Where is every single piece of evidence that you have?
So if God would have done what you're saying, we would not even have made it to have a Bible. Because guess what? A prophet would have had to go on back and tell the people, hey, this is what God said. God said you guys are wrong about X, Y, and Z. And guess what? They would have killed them. If you went back in time today and you told these people what you know, they would have killed you. You know why?
Because of the time, right? Is that what you're about to say? Because of the time?
Yeah, because of the time. And like, if you take that point out of the book, you're taking the human element out of the book. You're taking that out of the history. Because
I'm making it make sense by a God's perspective.
No, making it not make sense.
It does make sense. A God should do that. If it is a God, it should do that.
So he could do those things.
And especially if it knows everything. If it cannot do that, then it's a weak God.
No.
Yes. If it cannot do that, then it's a weak God. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you emotionally feel right now, it is a weak God if it cannot do that. Okay. It either can or it cannot.
The problem isn't God. The problem is he's interacting with humans. That's the problem.
Well, that's my whole thing. No matter what, a God doesn't have to worry about interaction with humans. A God can okay. Let's bring this down to this point right now. Can your God do anything? Yes or no? If you say yes, you're about to look stupid.
He can do anything that's logically possible.
Okay, is it logically possible for your God to be able to say, I did not in fact say that to this human, or I did say that to this human?
Yes, it is. Now,
okay, so then there should not be any misinstruction. There should not be any misconstruction or instruction at all. There should be no misstatements.
The catch-22 to that is, with this God being able to do anything that's logically possible, he also does things that is the best out of the. He can do things that is the best out of the logical possibilities. So the best possible way to interact with these people is, okay, I'm not going to correct their science. I'm not going to correct their morality. What matters most is the theology of the thing. He's trying to get these people to understand truths about who he is, his nature, his ontology, things along those lines. It would be the same as somebody saying, how come God didn't teach these people physics? Because he's trying to teach these people theological truths. He's teaching these people two types of truths about reality.
If there is a way that you can let everybody know about you, would you do it through a book?
Would I do it through a book? It depends. I mean, it's a contingent question. Is this book going to be very popular, like 50 Shades of Grey? I mean,
it doesn't matter. Would you do it through a book?
It's contingent. It's not a yes or a no answer. It depends on certain parameters.
Okay, then. So it's more of a yes or no question. Just a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no. It's contingent.
Would you do that? Honestly.
It depends on certain parameters. I can't give a yes or no answer unless I know certain things.
Well, in my conclusion, I don't think you would do that. I don't think you would.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I don't think you would.
I'll tell you what. That probably was the best possible way because guess what? We're still talking about that book today.
Well, we're still talking about that book because you brought it up.
Well, I mean,
and the whole thing is that book is highly inaccurate, and it has been proven to be false on multiple accounts. Multiple accounts.
So when you say false, what type of truth are you talking about? Scientific truth? Because of course, an ancient book would be wrong scientifically. Like, so
truth is not subjective. Truth is not subjective.
I understand.
Truth doesn't fall into a subjective category. There's no such thing as scientific truth or biblical truth. There's no such thing. Either it is this way or it isn't this way. You get what I'm saying?
There are different fields of knowledge, and those fields of knowledge all line up to what we determine to be true. And so there's different ways to obtain knowledge about the world besides scientific knowledge. And so if you're saying scientific knowledge in the Bible, of course, because their knowledge is human knowledge from their time. So it's like you're trying to impose a view that's not their view. You're trying to impose a view that's what's the word? It's not fair. It's not fair to the ancient authors.
It's at the same time, it's either true or it's not. That's all I'm saying.
No,
yes. And this is why. Because it's not fair to ancient authors doesn't mean I don't give a damn whether or not it's fair to them. They either got it right or they got it wrong. And as we can see, they have gotten it wrong from like the point of the jump. Just like how you're bringing up this whole Noah's Ark flood. This Noah's Ark flood is physically impossible, as we have seen. Yeah.
I agree with that interpretation being physically impossible. The problem is that's not what these people were talking about. The type of flood they were talking about was a local flood that happened in Mesopotamia.
How do you know?
Because we have evidence of this local deluge.
How do you know they were talking about a local flood in the Bible? Is what I'm saying. How do you know they're talking about a local flood in the Bible?
Because we know from the language. So
how do you know that?
Okay, so we know they're talking.
Did you study the language?
Yeah.
You have studied the language.
Yeah.
And so it said it was a local community where Noah's flood happened.
So it's even better than that. So English is not one of the best languages to speak in. It's not as clear, it's not as concise. And so in the New Testament, in 2 Peter, it talks about how the world was submerged in water. And so in the Greek, there's actually a word for world. There's two different words for world. And when it says the world at that time was submerged or flooded, right? It uses the word, I think it's the word cosmos tote. And the word cosmos totes literally means it can imply a group of people. If Paul wanted to imply that the entire world was flooded, he wouldn't have used the word tote. He would have just used the word cosmos by itself. So just by the language in the Greek of the New Testament, you can know that the Old Testament writers were talking about a local flood. But you would never know that if you didn't look at the language. You would never know that if you never took the context or the culture into consideration. I would recommend that if you do any type of like Bible readings, do Bible study. Just sit down and what I'll do is when we get done, because right now the conversation is kind of like going up in the air now. This became kind of fruitless now. But I'll message you like some of my material I look into, and you can sit down. You can have real like Bible study. A lot of people don't look into the stuff the way they're supposed to, and that's okay. I wouldn't expect most people to. But when you're talking about a book like the Bible, it is a complicated subject because you do have to kind of look at it like as a scholar. And I know people don't like that, but it's very similar to if you had a pipe that was busted in your house, you would call a plumber. You wouldn't call some random guy who said, "Oh yeah, I went to school for this." And then you go and you say, "All right, like where's your degree?" And they're like, "Oh, I lost it." Like You would go to somebody who you know was an expert in this stuff. So it's the same thing with the Bible. You definitely want to seek out people who are scholarly, who are experts. So that's pretty much it. I'm about to go to bed. We've been talking about this for a long time, though, man. It's been good talking to you, bro.
Yeah, for real.
We've been around the world with it.
I'll go ahead and let you close this out. with when you're done saying your point, and then after that, I guess we'll go ahead and leave it at that.
So we talked about a lot of things, but I think
we were all over the place. We talked about faith, the Bible. We don't know what we were talking about for real in one context.
We're talking about a lot of things, but
yeah, we talked about morality somehow. We jumped on that.
Which I'm probably one of the first people to tell you that morality, in my view, is there is an objective morality, but our human morality is contingent and subjective. I know you're like, I know I'm probably one of the first people who probably met, and you're probably like, this is so weird. Somebody asked real quick, they said, how can you accept evolution and be a Christian? You let the Bible be the Bible. You let the science be the science. You understand the Bible is not a science book. The Bible has its groundings in theological and spiritual views of reality. But when it comes to other different fields of the world, you go to philosophy to learn about philosophy. You go to history to learn about history. So they all have their separate place. So you don't have to deny the science. Because guess what? The Bible isn't a science book. Nor did God intend it to be a science book. The Bible is a book that was written by people about what they believed about God. It's not a book about what God believed about himself. If you keep the human element in the Bible, you won't go wrong. The human element of theology and the natural element of reality, they balance each other out. That's why I can say, okay, the biblical writers in this part was wrong because they were human. God was using humans. He allowed humans to do these certain things. And that is okay. That's fine. But where the crucial parts of the Christian faith come into the theology. Did Jesus really exist? Did Jesus really die on the cross? Did Jesus resurrect from the dead? Those would be crucial parts of the Christian faith. So when it comes to those things, yeah, that's what it is. I'll close this out by saying you can always have a conversation with somebody who you don't see eye to eye with. You say unwanted. And when it comes to these conversations, always be open to learning new things and building each other up and sharpening each other up. Because guess what? Even him being an atheist and me being, it doesn't matter what we believe theologically. Because guess what? I might be wrong about something. And he might tell me something I might not know. And he might be wrong about something. And I might be able to sharpen him and tell me something he might not know. And guess what? We're all trying to find out what the truth is. And we're all trying to
I would hate to say it like this, but we'll find out when we die.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll say I have confidence that what I believe is true, but you won't come to an epistemological knowing until you get there.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I had a really good time talking too.
Yeah, man. So I guess I gave you a taste of how it'll be tomorrow when I talk to the 3 Black Heathens.
What was it, like 4 hours, man?
Yeah, man. We've been talking for a long time. No bathroom breaks.
Wow. Can this even go on YouTube by this point?
Oh, it's still broadcasting. I'm still looking at people go.
Oh, all right. Cool. Well, I want to say to all your followers then, I'm glad you guys have him on your team. He's a very complicated individual. And thank you so much, man. I'm glad I could be here and conversate with you, man. I know I got passionate a few times, but I really do get crazy sometimes with this topic.
It happens in these discussions, man. Just like I said, though, bro. Like how so it took a long time for me to accept evolution, and a lot of people say, "Oh, like you accept evolution." It's like I said, 2 different things. But when it comes to like the theological stuff about God, just for you to even build a solid case, or just for you to just have enough information for you to really go off of, and now that you met me, you can actually get some scholarly stuff. It'll take some time, man. It'll definitely take some time. Who knows? We could talk for like 4 years from now. You might change your mind on this. You might not. But it's all about understanding that we're fallible. And
Right.
I think with that humbleness, I think that's one thing that above all else, that's what God would have. He would want us to have in these type of conversations. And that's where the Christian message comes into play and all that stuff. So I think I'm done. I think I'm just going to bed. I'm done.
Right. All right, man. Cool. Well, you said the name of the book, by the way, was 1,000 Cuts.
Oh, so the name of the book by J. Warner Wallace. It is called Cold Case. It's called Cold Case Christianity.
Cold Case
Christianity. So J. Warner Wallace is a detective, and so I actually, coming out of younger creationism. I know you know what younger creationism is, the belief that the Earth is 6,000 years old and all that stuff. Coming out of younger creationism, it was actually the principles from J. Warner Wallace's book that actually helped me accept evolution. And J. Warner Wallace, he's a Christian. And so I was using his principles about detective work and how detectives solve different crimes. I used those detective principles so I could actually accept evolution. But it was J. Warner Wallace who used those same detective principles to become a Christian. So I definitely think that if you retrain yourself on how to think about certain things, you'll come to the best conclusion possible if you're humble. That's why I always, try and tell people, when you're looking at the Bible, you're gonna have to retrain how you think. You're definitely gonna have to look at like people like John Walton, Michael Heiser, people like that, people who are in the field who will tell you, no, like that's not right. I know you've been taught this at church for 20 years, but that's not true.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I hope you definitely, take some looks at Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and all that, man.
Oh man, that was
get the whole philosophy and free will not existent stuff down,
Hey,
but that's a whole separate conversation for another time, man. Free will take like years to discuss on.
Tell me about it, bro. I'm winded. I'm done. What have these man? Because I have these hangouts probably like every couple of weeks, but it's usually more people in here, so it'll probably be like 4 atheists, 3 Christians, and like the people. Oh my gosh! All right, I'll tell you off here.
That's good, man. That's good.
I'm about to